Have you noticed that you no longer feel connected to the person you used to be? The things that once excited you now feel shallow, and the people you once depended on no longer seem to understand you. Even your dreams feel like they are changing shape, as if your future is quietly rewriting itself without asking for your permission. It feels lonely, confusing, and heavy, and you may wonder whether something inside you is breaking. But what if nothing is breaking at all? What if you are standing in the space between two versions of yourself, where the old identity is dissolving and the new one has not fully formed? The Buddha explained that growth is never comfortable because it demands that you release what is familiar before clarity can appear. That in-between space feels unstable and instability feels like loss, yet it is actually transition. Nothing feels the same because you are not meant to remain the same. Life is pushing you toward a higher awareness, and in this video, you will understand why this heavy season is not a sign that you are falling apart, but undeniable proof that you are rising into something greater. 1. The discomfort you feel is expansion in disguise. There comes a phase in life when everything that once felt normal begins to feel unfamiliar, almost as if you are standing in the same world, but experiencing it with different eyes. The routines that once gave you comfort now feel mechanical and empty. The conversations that once excited you now seem repetitive and shallow. Even the places you once escaped to for peace may start to feel restrictive, as if they can no longer hold the person you are becoming. You may begin questioning yourself, wondering whether something is wrong with your emotions, your mindset, or your gratitude. You might even feel guilty for not enjoying what you used to enjoy. But what if this discomfort is not a breakdown? What if it is growth unfolding quietly from within you? The Buddha taught that awareness is the first step toward transformation, and awareness does not arrive gently. When your consciousness begins to rise, you start seeing things more clearly. You notice patterns in your behavior. You recognize attachments that once controlled you. You realize that some of your desires were never truly yours, but were shaped by habit, fear, or the need for approval. This realization can feel heavy because clarity removes illusion, and illusions are often comfortable. When you begin to outgrow old ways of thinking, your old life naturally feels smaller. What once entertained you now feels meaningless, not because it changed, but because you changed. This heaviness is not punishment, and it is not a sign that you are failing. It is expansion. Growth stretches your identity beyond its previous limits, and stretching always creates tension. Just as a seed must break open before it can grow into a tree, your sense of self must crack before it can evolve into something stronger. In the moment of breaking, the seed might appear destroyed, but in reality, it is beginning its true purpose. In the same way, you are not losing your life. You are shedding a version of yourself that can no longer contain your expanding awareness. What feels uncomfortable now will later feel like the doorway that led you to a higher, wiser, and more grounded version of yourself. 2. When life removes things, it is making space. There are moments in life when things begin to fall away without warning. A relationship becomes distant, an opportunity disappears, a plan you were certain about suddenly collapses. At first, it feels unfair and confusing, as if life is taking something from you just when you needed it most. You may replay situations in your mind, wondering what you did wrong or why things could not stay the same. But what if what feels like loss is actually preparation? What if life is not taking from you, but clearing space for something that fits your next level of growth? The Buddha taught that impermanence is one of the deepest truths of existence. Everything changes, nothing remains fixed. When we try to hold tightly to people, roles, or situations that have already completed their purpose in our lives, we create suffering for ourselves. Sometimes what leaves is not meant to be repaired because its role was temporary. Just as trees shed leaves in a certain season, life removes what can no longer grow with you. The shedding may look like loss, but it is part of a natural cycle. The heaviness you feel during this time comes from attachment and uncertainty. You are standing between the familiar and the unknown. The old chapter is closing, but the new one has not fully opened yet. That space in between feels unstable because you cannot see what is coming next. However, emptiness is not always negative. A room must be empty before it can be redesigned. A field must be cleared before new seeds can be planted. In the same way, life sometimes clears your surroundings so that something more aligned with your evolving self can enter. You are not being abandoned, you are being repositioned. What is leaving may have matched the person you were yesterday, but it may not match the person you are becoming today. Trust that removal is not always rejection. Sometimes it is protection, sometimes it is redirection, and sometimes it is life gently guiding you toward a space where you can grow without limitation. 3. The resistance of the mind creates the weight. When life begins to change, the first place that reacts is not your surroundings, but your mind. Your mind is designed to seek safety, and it often defines safety as familiarity. Even if a situation is limiting, unhealthy, or unfulfilling, the mind prefers it simply because it is known. When life starts pushing you towards something new, your mind interprets that change as danger. It responds with doubt, fear, overthinking, and hesitation. This internal resistance is what creates the heavy feeling in your chest and the constant tension in your thoughts. The Buddha explained that suffering does not come directly from change itself, but from our attachment to what we want to remain the same. Change is natural. It is the law of existence. But the mind tries to control it. It asks questions like, what if this goes wrong? Or what if I lose everything? Or why can't things just stay the way they were? These thoughts create emotional weight. You begin fighting reality instead of flowing with it. And the more you fight, the heavier it feels. When you resist growth, you experience confusion and frustration because part of you knows you are evolving, while another part is desperately trying to hold on to the old version of yourself. It is like trying to walk forward while pulling yourself backward at the same time. That tension is exhausting. The heaviness is not life punishing you. It is the friction between your expanding awareness and your old comfort zone. Once you begin to observe this resistance instead of blindly following it, something shifts. You realize that fear is simply the mind reacting to uncertainty, not proof that you are making the wrong move. The moment you accept that growth requires change, the pressure begins to soften. You stop asking why things feel different and start understanding that different does not mean worse, it means new. And new always feels unfamiliar before it feels empowering. 4. You are outgrowing what once matched you. There is a quiet shift that happens during growth that many people misunderstand. Nothing dramatic needs to occur. No big fight, no clear betrayal, no obvious failure. Yet something inside you changes. You begin to feel slightly disconnected from conversations that once felt natural. You notice that the jokes that once made you laugh now feel forced. The goals that once motivated you now seem hollow. Even the environments that once made you feel comfortable start to feel heavy or draining. At first, this can be confusing because from the outside, everything appears the same. The people are the same. The places are the same. The routines are the same. But internally, you are not the same anymore. The Buddha taught that attachment creates suffering, especially when we cling to what has already completed its role in our lives. Growth does not always mean gaining something new immediately. Sometimes it means realizing that certain energies no longer align with who you are becoming. As your awareness deepens, your standards naturally shift. You begin seeking meaning instead of distraction. You crave depth instead of noise. You value peace more than approval. This inner elevation changes what feels right to you. It is not that others are wrong or bad. It is simply that your internal frequency has shifted. When you outgrow something, it does not always disappear instantly. Sometimes it remains around you while you slowly detach from it emotionally. This is where the heaviness comes from. You are physically present in environments that no longer match your internal state. You are engaging in conversations that do not stimulate your new level of thinking. You are holding on to roles that feel smaller than your expanding awareness. This mismatch creates discomfort. It feels like wearing clothes that used to fit perfectly, but now feel tight and restrictive. You are not uncomfortable because the clothes are terrible. You are uncomfortable because you have grown. This phase can feel lonely because growth often separates you from what once felt familiar. You may notice that some friendships naturally become distant, not because of conflict, but because your priorities have changed. You may find yourself wanting more solitude, more reflection, more meaningful interactions. At times, you might question whether you are becoming too different or too detached. But growth always creates separation before it creates alignment. You must release what no longer fits in order to make space for what truly resonates with your new self. The Buddha emphasized non-attachment not as emotional coldness, but as freedom. When you stop forcing yourself to stay where you no longer belong, you allow life to rearrange itself around your growth. You stop shrinking to fit old spaces. You stop lowering your awareness to feel accepted. Instead, you begin honoring your evolution. This does not mean rejecting others harshly or judging them. It simply means recognizing that your path is moving forward and not everyone or everything is meant to move at the same pace. The heaviness you feel during this process is the emotional weight of transition. It is the feeling of standing between your old identity and your emerging one. It is uncomfortable because you are learning to trust yourself without constant external validation. You are learning to walk into new territory without guaranteed outcomes. But this discomfort is proof of expansion. You are not becoming distant from life. You are becoming more aligned with your true nature. Outgrowing what once matched you is not loss. It is evolution. And evolution always feels uncertain before it feels liberating. When you fully accept that you are allowed to grow beyond old environments, relationships, and limitations, the heaviness begins to transform into clarity. You understand that nothing is going wrong. You are simply rising into a version of yourself that requires a different space to thrive. 5. Silence means reconstruction is taking place. There are seasons in life when everything becomes unusually quiet, and that quietness can feel unsettling. The phone does not ring as often. The invitations slow down. The constant distractions that once filled your schedule begin to fade. You may wake up and feel as though the world has pulled back from you, leaving you alone with your thoughts. At first, this silence feels uncomfortable. It can even feel like rejection. You may wonder why life suddenly seems less exciting, less active, less connected. But what if this silence is not emptiness? What if it is preparation? The Buddha often withdrew into solitude, not because he rejected the world, but because clarity is born in stillness. Noise keeps you distracted from yourself. Activity keeps you busy enough to avoid deep reflection. When life becomes quiet, it removes the outer stimulation that once kept your inner questions hidden. Suddenly, you begin noticing your thoughts more clearly. You start seeing your emotional patterns without interruption. You recognize fears that were always there, but were buried beneath constant movement. This awareness can feel heavy because it forces honesty. Silence exposes what distraction hides. Without noise, you cannot escape your own mind. You begin asking deeper questions. Why do certain situations trigger you? Why do you seek validation? Why do you fear being alone? These realizations are not comfortable, but they are necessary. Growth cannot happen while you are constantly running from yourself. Life sometimes creates silence not to isolate you, but to rebuild you. Think about how construction works. When a building needs renovation, it often appears messy before it looks improved. Walls are stripped, floors are torn up, old structures are removed. From the outside, it may look chaotic, but internally, a stronger foundation is being prepared. In the same way, when life becomes quiet, it is often restructuring your inner foundation. It is removing weak beliefs. It is challenging emotional dependencies. It is clearing space for maturity and stability. This period may also feel lonely because you are no longer surrounded by constant noise and external affirmation, but loneliness during growth is not the same as abandonment. It is the space where self-understanding deepens. When you sit in silence long enough, you begin to discover parts of yourself that were always overshadowed by distraction. You start realizing that your worth does not depend on constant attention. You begin finding calm within yourself instead of chasing it outside. The heaviness during this season comes from facing truths you once avoided. It comes from letting go of old coping mechanisms. It comes from understanding that some parts of your old identity cannot continue into your next level. Just as a caterpillar dissolves inside the cocoon before becoming a butterfly, there is a phase where your old structure feels like it is breaking down. That breakdown is not destruction, it is transformation. The cocoon stage is silent, isolated, and hidden from the world, yet it is the most important stage of growth. Silence teaches you resilience. It strengthens your relationship with your own mind. It forces you to build emotional stability instead of depending on external stimulation. When this quiet season passes, you will notice that you are calmer, clearer, and less reactive. Situations that once overwhelmed you will feel manageable. Opinions that once shook you will feel insignificant. You will respond instead of react. You will choose instead of chase. The quiet was not punishment. It was preparation. It was life giving you the space to rebuild yourself from the inside out. And once reconstruction is complete, you will step forward not as the same person who entered the silence, but as someone stronger, wiser, and more grounded than before. 6. Pressure is expanding you into someone you could not have become otherwise. There are seasons in life when the pressure does not come from just one direction. It comes from everywhere at once. Responsibilities increase at work or in your studies. Family expectations feel heavier. Financial concerns demand attention. Emotional challenges surface unexpectedly. It can feel as though life has decided to test every part of you at the same time. You wake up already tired. You carry a quiet tension in your body. Your thoughts move faster than usual. In those moments, it is easy to believe that you are being overwhelmed because you are weak. But the deeper truth is often the opposite. Pressure does not arrive to expose weakness alone. It arrives to awaken strength that has been waiting to be activated. The Buddha's journey was not a path of comfort. Before he reached clarity, he faced doubt, discipline, sacrifice, and deep internal struggle. Growth has never been a gentle process. It reshapes you. It demands that you move beyond old limits. Just as raw gold must pass through intense heat to remove its impurities, your character must pass through pressure to refine itself. The heat does not destroy the gold. It reveals its purity. In the same way, the pressure in your life is not there to erase you. It is there to refine you. When life begins preparing you for a higher level, it increases the weight you must carry. A stronger building requires a deeper foundation. A larger responsibility requires a steadier mind. If your life is demanding more from you, it is often because you are capable of more than you realize. The mind may say, "This is too much," but your deeper self knows that you are growing into someone who can handle complexity with stability. A teacher gives advanced lessons only when the student has mastered the basics. In the same way, life introduces greater challenges when your inner strength has quietly matured. Pressure also forces you to confront parts of yourself that comfort never reveals. When everything is calm, you can believe you are patient, disciplined, and balanced. But when stress increases, your real reactions appear. You see where you lose control. You see where fear still dominates your decisions. You see where attachment creates anxiety. This exposure can feel uncomfortable, but it is necessary. The Buddha taught that awareness is the beginning of liberation. Pressure increases awareness. It shows you exactly where growth is still required. There is also another reason pressure feels heavier during transformation. As you grow, your awareness deepens. You begin to care more about your actions. You think more carefully about consequences. You reflect more on your choices. This expanded awareness makes responsibility feel intense because you are no longer living on autopilot. You are conscious, and consciousness carries weight. But that weight is maturity forming. It is the sign that you are evolving beyond carelessness into intentional living. Think of how muscles grow stronger. When you lift something heavier than usual, the muscle fibers stretch beyond their comfort zone. In the moment, it feels difficult. There may even be pain. But during recovery, those fibers rebuild thicker and stronger. Without resistance, they would never grow. Emotional and spiritual growth follow the same principle. The stretching phase feels exhausting. The pressure phase feels relentless, but once adaptation occurs, you discover a new strength that was not there before. What once felt impossible becomes manageable. What once felt overwhelming becomes normal. Pressure also builds emotional endurance. You learn how to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. You learn how to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. You begin to trust yourself more because you have survived difficulty before. Each challenge becomes evidence that you are capable. Over time, this evidence creates confidence that is not based on praise or validation, but on lived experience. You know you can endure because you have endured. It is important to understand that life does not randomly increase weight. If you truly were not capable of carrying it, the situation would not appear in your path. The heaviness is proof that your capacity is expanding. You are being trained to hold more responsibility without losing your balance. You are being shaped into someone who can stand steady even when circumstances are unstable. The pressure is carving resilience into your character. When this season passes, you will look back and realize that what once felt unbearable was the turning point. You will notice that your patience has deepened, your reactions have softened, your perspective has widened. Situations that once would have broken you will no longer shake you. The weight that once felt crushing will feel like the reason you became stronger. Pressure is not your enemy. It is the force that transforms potential into power. It is the fire that strengthens your foundation. It is the training ground where your next level is formed. Life is not trying to break you under the weight. It is teaching you how to carry more without collapsing. And when you step fully into that new capacity, you will understand that the pressure was never against you. It was always preparing you for something greater than your previous self could have handled. 7. Nothing feels the same because you are not the same. There comes a quiet realization during deep growth that nothing around you has drastically changed, yet everything feels different. The same streets, the same room, the same people, the same daily routine are still present, but your experience of them is no longer the same. The music you once loved does not move you in the same way. The conversations that once felt exciting now feel repetitive. The goals that once consumed your thoughts now seem smaller, almost distant. At first, this shift can be unsettling. You may wonder if you are losing interest in life. if you are becoming detached, or if something inside you is fading. But what if the opposite is true? What if nothing feels the same because you are awakening into a deeper version of yourself? The Buddha taught that awakening is not about adding something new to your life. It is about seeing clearly. It is about removing illusions that once shaped your perception. When illusions fall away, reality feels different. You are not walking through a new world. You are walking through the same world with new awareness. And awareness changes everything. In the past, you may have chased approval without realizing it. You may have shaped your behavior to fit expectations. You may have tolerated situations that drained you because you believed they were necessary for belonging. But as your consciousness rises, you begin noticing these patterns. You begin asking deeper questions. Why do I seek validation from certain people? Why do I fear being alone? Why do I hold on to situations that limit my peace? These questions were always there, but now you are ready to face them honestly. When you begin facing truth, the world naturally feels different. You cannot unsee what you have seen. You cannot unknow what you have realized. The heaviness you feel during this stage is the shedding of old identities. You are releasing beliefs that once defined you. You are letting go of roles that once felt permanent. That shedding process feels uncomfortable because identity feels safe. Even if the identity was limiting, it was familiar, and familiarity creates a false sense of stability. The Buddha explained that attachment to identity is one of the deepest sources of suffering. When you cling to who you think you are, you resist who you are becoming. Growth requires flexibility. It requires the willingness to let go of outdated versions of yourself. Nothing feels the same because your old identity is dissolving. You are no longer the person who tolerated certain treatment. You are no longer the person who chased certain desires. You are no longer the person who reacted impulsively to every emotional trigger. That person is fading, and a more aware version is emerging. This transition can feel lonely because the people around you may still relate to the old version of you. They may expect you to respond in familiar ways. They may not immediately understand your new boundaries or your quieter presence, but growth often creates temporary distance before it creates new alignment. You are not becoming distant from life. You are becoming more selective with your energy. You are learning that peace is more valuable than constant stimulation. When nothing feels the same, it is often because your sensitivity has deepened. You notice subtle dynamics in conversations. You sense when energy feels heavy or forced. You feel drawn toward simplicity instead of chaos. This sensitivity is not weakness, it is awareness. You are becoming more conscious of how your environment affects your mind. And with that consciousness comes responsibility. You begin choosing differently. You begin walking away from what disturbs your inner stability. You begin protecting your mental clarity. There is also a deeper truth in this shift. When your perception changes, your emotional reactions change. Situations that once triggered anger now invite observation. Criticism that once hurt deeply now feels manageable. Rejection that once shattered your confidence now feels like redirection. The external event may be identical, but your internal response is different. That difference is growth. The world did not change. You did. This is why nothing feels the same. You are seeing through layers that once controlled you. You are noticing attachments that once felt invisible. You are choosing awareness over impulse. And awareness always changes experience. Imagine wearing colored glasses your entire life without realizing it. Everything you see would be filtered through that color. The moment you remove those glasses, the world appears different, even though it has not changed. Awakening works in the same way. You are removing filters. You are seeing clearly. The heaviness in this phase comes from the space between who you were and who you are becoming. It feels uncertain because you are not fully attached to your old self. but you are not fully comfortable in your new self either. You are in between. This in-between stage is powerful, but it can feel unstable. The Buddha emphasized that transformation requires patience. You cannot rush the integration of awareness. Just as a tree does not grow overnight, your new identity needs time to root itself deeply. During this period, you may feel less interested in external validation. You may prefer solitude over noise. You may crave meaningful conversations instead of superficial exchanges. These changes are not signs of isolation, they are signs of alignment. You are aligning your outer life with your inner evolution, and alignment requires adjustment. Eventually, this heaviness transforms into clarity, the confusion fades, the loneliness softens, the uncertainty stabilizes. You begin to feel grounded in your new awareness. You realize that the discomfort was simply the process of recalibration. Life was not breaking apart. It was rearranging itself around your growth. When you fully step into this new version of yourself, you will look back at this season with gratitude. You will understand that nothing feeling the same was not a loss. It was a sign of awakening. You were not losing interest in life. You were losing attachment to illusion. You were not becoming disconnected. You were becoming conscious. Nothing feels the same because you are not the same. You are deeper, you are calmer, you are more aware. And once you accept that growth changes perception, you stop fearing the shift. You begin trusting it. You understand that every time life feels different, it may simply be because you have evolved again. And when you evolve, the world must feel new, because you are seeing it with new eyes. 8. The version of you that is emerging will redefine your entire life. There is a moment in deep transformation when you begin to sense that the changes happening inside you are not temporary moods or passing emotions. They are structural. They are foundational. Something at your core is shifting. The way you think, the way you respond, the way you value time, the way you see people, and even the way you see yourself begins to transform. It can feel unsettling because you cannot fully explain it to others. You only know that the old version of you no longer fits the life you are stepping into. This is not a phase. This is evolution. The Buddha taught that life is a continuous flow of becoming. We are not fixed beings. We are processes unfolding moment by moment. Yet most people cling tightly to a stable identity because it feels safe. They define themselves by their past choices, past mistakes, past relationships, and past roles. But growth requires the courage to release that rigid self-definition. When you allow yourself to evolve, you stop saying, "This is just who I am," and you begin asking, "Who am I becoming?" The heaviness you have been feeling is connected to this becoming. It is the weight of transformation. Just as a bridge under construction must carry new materials before it can serve its purpose, your mind and heart are carrying new awareness before your new life fully forms. You may feel emotionally sensitive. You may feel deeply reflective. You may feel less reactive, but more observant. These are signs that your inner architecture is changing. As this new version of you emerges, your priorities begin to shift. You value peace more than drama. You value depth more than attention. You value meaning more than temporary pleasure. This shift may cause friction in your environment because not everyone will understand your transformation. Some people are comfortable with the old you. They know how to interact with that version. When you change, it challenges their expectations. But growth is not about maintaining comfort for others. It is about aligning with truth within yourself. You may notice that you are less interested in proving yourself. The need to impress begins to fade. You no longer feel the same urgency to be validated by external approval. This does not mean you stop caring about others. It means your foundation of worth is moving inward. You begin to respect yourself quietly instead of seeking loud recognition. The Buddha emphasized inner stability as the true source of strength. When your identity is grounded in awareness rather than opinion, external fluctuations lose their power over you. This emerging version of you is also learning patience. In the past, you may have rushed outcomes, forced conversations, or chased certainty. Now, you are beginning to understand that life unfolds at its own pace. You are learning to observe before reacting. You are learning to pause before speaking. You are learning that silence often carries more wisdom than impulse. This patience is not passivity. It is strength under control. Another sign of this transformation is emotional regulation. Situations that once triggered intense reactions now create reflection instead. You may still feel emotions deeply, but you are not controlled by them in the same way. You are becoming the observer of your emotions rather than the prisoner of them. The Buddha taught that awareness creates freedom. When you observe your thoughts and feelings without immediately identifying with them, you create space between stimulus and response. In that space, growth lives. The emerging version of you also redefines success. It is no longer measured solely by external achievements. It is measured by inner peace. It is measured by clarity of intention. It is measured by the ability to remain calm during chaos. You begin understanding that true elevation is not about climbing above others. It is about rising above your old patterns. It is about transcending habits that once limited your potential. There may still be moments of doubt during this transition. You may question whether you are losing parts of yourself. You may feel nostalgic about the simplicity of your previous mindset. But nostalgia is natural during growth. It is familiar territory calling you back. The important thing is not to confuse familiarity with alignment. The old version of you served its purpose. It helped you survive certain stages of life. But survival is not the same as expansion. As this new version solidifies, you will begin noticing external shifts that mirror your internal evolution. New opportunities will align with your new mindset. New connections will resonate with your deeper values. Conversations will feel more meaningful. The environments that once drained you will no longer hold the same power. Life rearranges itself around the person you become. This is why nothing feels the same. You are not just adjusting surface behaviors, you are reconstructing your foundation. And reconstruction requires time, patience, and endurance. The heaviness you have experienced was part of this reconstruction. It was the pressure required to reshape your identity. When this process stabilizes, you will feel a quiet confidence, not loud, not arrogant, but steady. You will know who you are without needing constant reassurance. You will move with intention instead of impulse. You will choose peace over proving. You will value growth over comfort. The version of you that is emerging will redefine your entire life because perception shapes reality. When your perception changes, your decisions change. When your decisions change, your direction changes. And when your direction changes, your future transforms. You are not stepping into a slightly improved version of your old life. You are stepping into a higher awareness that will influence every area of your existence. One day, you will look back at this heavy season and recognize it as the turning point. You will see that the confusion was clarity forming. You will understand that the loneliness was independence building. You will realize that the pressure was capacity expanding. The discomfort was not random, it was preparation. The Buddha's teaching reminds us that awakening is not a dramatic explosion, it is a gradual unfolding. It is the quiet realization that you are not bound by your past. It is the steady understanding that growth is not something happening to you, but something happening through you. The emerging version of you is stronger, calmer, wiser, and more aligned than any previous version. It does not chase what once distracted you. It does not fear what once intimidated you. It does not depend on what once defined you. It stands grounded in awareness. And once you fully embody this version, life will no longer feel heavy in the same way. It will feel purposeful. It will feel intentional. It will feel aligned. You will realize that every uncomfortable shift was guiding you toward this moment of clarity. You are not becoming someone completely new. You are uncovering someone more authentic, and that authenticity will reshape your entire path in ways your old self could never have imagined. 9. The life ahead of you requires a stronger mind than the one you used to have. There is a truth about transformation that many people do not fully understand. When life begins to feel heavy, confusing, or unfamiliar, it is often because the version of you that carried your past cannot carry your future. The mindset that helped you survive one chapter of your life is not always strong enough to guide you into the next. And so, life does something uncomfortable but necessary. It begins reshaping your mind. At first, this reshaping does not feel empowering. It feels destabilizing. Your old beliefs begin to crack. The way you used to see yourself starts to feel incomplete. The way you used to react to problems begins to feel immature. Situations that once defined your identity no longer carry the same emotional weight. You may feel like you are losing certainty. But what you are actually losing is limitation. The Buddha taught that the mind is both the creator of suffering and the path to liberation. Everything begins in the mind. When your perception changes, your experience changes. When your interpretation shifts, your emotional response shifts. If your life ahead of you is meant to hold greater responsibility, deeper awareness, and higher purpose, then your mind must evolve to match it. A small container cannot hold a larger vision. A narrow mindset cannot manage expanded consciousness. This is why life feels intense during transformation. It is training your mind to become stronger, calmer, and more disciplined. It is teaching you to think beyond immediate emotion. It is teaching you to see challenges as opportunities for growth rather than proof of failure. It is teaching you to observe before reacting. These lessons are not always gentle. They are learned through discomfort. In your earlier stages of life, you may have relied heavily on external validation. Approval from others shaped your confidence. Criticism from others damaged your stability. Success lifted your mood. Failure crushed it. Your emotional state was directly connected to circumstances. But as you grow, life begins separating your identity from external conditions. It places you in situations where praise is limited and misunderstanding is possible. It allows silence to replace applause. It removes constant reassurance so that you can build internal reassurance. This phase feels lonely because the old sources of emotional comfort are no longer as available. But loneliness during growth is not abandonment. It is independence forming. You are being trained to stand firm without needing constant external support. You are being trained to trust your own judgment without seeking approval at every step. The stronger mind you are building does not collapse under criticism or inflate under praise. It remains steady. The life ahead of you will require emotional control. It will require clarity under pressure. It will require the ability to make decisions that not everyone understands. And so life is preparing you now. Every difficult conversation you navigate calmly strengthens you. Every disappointment you process maturely strengthens you. Every moment you choose patience over reaction strengthens you. These moments may seem small, but they are building a foundation that your future will stand upon. Think about how a warrior trains. The training is harder than the battle itself. The weight is heavier than what will be faced later. The discipline is stricter than what the situation demands. Why? Because preparation determines performance. In the same way, the heaviness you feel now is mental training. Life is adding weight so that your capacity increases. Once your capacity increases, what once felt overwhelming will feel manageable. You may also notice that your perspective is widening. You are thinking long-term instead of short-term. You are valuing peace over temporary satisfaction. You are seeing through distractions that once controlled you. This shift can feel isolating because not everyone around you is moving at the same pace. But growth is not a group activity, it is deeply personal. Your mind is evolving in ways that require solitude, reflection, and honesty. The Buddha emphasized mindfulness as the path to freedom. Mindfulness strengthens the mind because it creates awareness. When you are aware of your thoughts, you are no longer controlled by them. When you observe your emotions, you are no longer trapped inside them. The stronger mind you are developing does not suppress emotion. It understands emotion. It does not deny fear. It examines fear. It does not escape discomfort. It learns from discomfort. There will be moments when you miss the simplicity of your old mindset. It was easier to react impulsively. It was easier to blame others. It was easier to avoid responsibility. Growth removes those easy escapes. It asks you to take ownership. It asks you to regulate your reactions. It asks you to think before speaking. These demands feel heavy because they require discipline. But discipline creates freedom. The life ahead of you may hold opportunities that your old mindset would have sabotaged. It may hold relationships that require maturity. It may hold leadership roles that require emotional intelligence. It may hold decisions that affect more than just you. A reactive, insecure, externally dependent mind cannot carry those responsibilities. A stable, aware, internally grounded mind can. This is why nothing feels the same. You are being mentally upgraded. Your thought patterns are being refined. Your emotional reactions are being slowed. Your impulses are being examined. You are becoming someone who responds instead of reacts, who reflects instead of rushes, who chooses instead of chases. There will come a time when you step into a new chapter of your life and realize that you are handling situations with a calmness that would have been impossible before. You will notice that criticism does not disturb you as deeply. You will notice that uncertainty does not terrify you as strongly. You will notice that your decisions are more intentional. That moment will be the evidence that this heavy season was preparation. The Buddha taught that liberation comes from mastery of the mind. Not control through force, but mastery through awareness. The stronger mind you are developing now is not rigid. It is flexible. It bends without breaking. It observes without collapsing. It acts without panic. That kind of mind is powerful. You are not being hardened into emotional coldness. You are being refined into emotional stability. You are not losing sensitivity. You are gaining control over it. You are not becoming detached from life. You are becoming grounded within it. The heaviness you feel is the training ground of your future self. It is shaping you into someone who can carry greater vision without being consumed by it. It is shaping you into someone who can remain centered when others are reactive. It is shaping you into someone who can lead yourself before leading anything else. One day, when you stand in a place of clarity and stability, you will look back at this period and understand that it was necessary. The confusion was strengthening your discernment. The silence was strengthening your independence. The pressure was strengthening your resilience. The discomfort was strengthening your awareness. The life ahead of you requires a stronger mind, and that stronger mind is being built right now. Not through comfort, but through challenge. Not through ease, but through expansion. Not through constant reassurance, but through self-trust. You are not falling apart. You are being prepared. You are not losing control. You are gaining discipline. You are not becoming distant. You are becoming deeper. And when this transformation completes, you will realize that nothing feels the same because you are finally equipped to live at a level your old self could never have sustained. 10. The heavy season you are in is the doorway to a completely new reality. There are seasons in life when everything feels slower, heavier, and more intense than you expected. It can feel like you are walking through thick fog. You are still moving, but you cannot clearly see where the path is leading. The things that once motivated you no longer excite you in the same way. The people you once depended on feel distant, even if they are still present. Your own thoughts feel deeper, sometimes overwhelming, sometimes silent, sometimes questioning everything. During this phase, it is easy to assume that something is wrong. It is easy to believe that you are lost. But what if this heavy season is not a mistake? What if it is a doorway? The Buddha taught that transformation does not happen by accident. It unfolds when conditions are ready. Just as a flower blooms only when the soil, water, and sunlight align, your next level appears only when your inner world has been prepared. Preparation is rarely comfortable. It involves shedding attachments, dissolving illusions, confronting fears, and releasing outdated versions of yourself. That process feels heavy because you are letting go of emotional weight you once carried unconsciously. When life begins to move you toward a new reality, it first removes what cannot enter that reality with you. It begins clearing space. Old habits feel empty. Certain relationships feel misaligned. Environments that once comforted you begin to feel restrictive. This is not because those things were necessarily bad. It is because they belonged to a previous chapter. Growth requires transition, and transition requires release. The heaviness you feel is the emotional gravity of release. Letting go is not just about physically walking away from something. It is about emotionally detaching from identities that once defined you. Perhaps you defined yourself through others' opinions. Perhaps you defined yourself through achievements. Perhaps you defined yourself through roles you felt obligated to maintain. As you grow, those definitions begin to loosen. You realize that your worth cannot be built on unstable foundations. You begin searching for something deeper, something more permanent, something rooted within. This search feels uncomfortable because it shifts responsibility inward. Instead of blaming circumstances, you begin observing your reactions. Instead of chasing constant distraction, you begin sitting with your thoughts. Instead of reacting instantly, you begin pausing. These changes feel heavy because they require awareness. Awareness carries weight. It removes ignorance. It removes excuses. It demands growth. There will be moments during this season when you feel misunderstood. You may not be able to explain why you feel different. Others may not see the internal changes happening within you. From the outside, your life may appear normal, but internally, everything is shifting. This internal reconstruction is silent but powerful. You are rebuilding your foundation from the inside out. The Buddha emphasized that suffering often arises from clinging to what is temporary. During this heavy season, you are being taught to loosen that clinging. You are learning that nothing external can guarantee permanent stability. Jobs change, relationships evolve, circumstances fluctuate. If your peace depends entirely on external conditions, it will always feel fragile. The new reality you are being prepared for requires internal stability. It requires peace that does not collapse when situations change. That kind of peace is built during heavy seasons. It is built when you choose reflection over reaction. It is built when you choose patience over panic. It is built when you choose growth over comfort. Each time you resist the urge to escape discomfort and instead observe it, you strengthen your awareness. Each time you process disappointment without losing yourself, you strengthen your resilience. Each time you endure uncertainty without rushing into fear, you strengthen your discipline. The doorway you are approaching is not just a new situation, it is a new way of being. In this new reality, you will think differently. You will respond differently. You will value differently. You will move with intention instead of impulse. You will no longer seek validation in the same way. You will no longer tolerate environments that disturb your peace. You will no longer define yourself through shallow measures of success. Right now, you may feel like you are losing clarity, but in truth, you are refining clarity. Old mental noise is being removed. Old emotional patterns are being exposed. Old fears are being confronted. This feels chaotic because the familiar structure is dissolving, but dissolution is necessary for reconstruction. Imagine a building being renovated. Before it becomes stronger and more beautiful, parts of it must be torn down. Dust fills the air. The structure looks incomplete. From the outside, it may appear damaged. But internally, a stronger design is being installed. In the same way, your heavy season is renovation. Your inner world is being redesigned to support a higher level of awareness. The Buddha spoke of awakening as a gradual unfolding, not a sudden explosion. Awakening happens when you begin seeing reality without distortion. During this heavy season, distortions are being removed. You are seeing yourself clearly. You are seeing others clearly. You are seeing life clearly. That clarity may initially feel uncomfortable because it reveals truths you once avoided, but truth is freedom. As you approach this doorway, you may also notice a growing sense of detachment, not coldness, but perspective. Situations that once consumed your energy now appear smaller. Conflicts that once felt dramatic now feel temporary. This detachment is maturity. It is the understanding that not everything deserves your emotional investment. It is the wisdom of choosing where your energy flows. The new reality ahead of you will not be perfect. It will still contain challenges. But you will face those challenges with a different mindset. You will not be easily shaken. You will not collapse under minor pressure. You will not seek constant reassurance. You will stand grounded in awareness. One day, you will step through this doorway without even realizing it. You will look back at this heavy season and recognize it as the turning point. You will see that the confusion forced you to think deeper. The loneliness forced you to know yourself. The pressure forced you to grow stronger. The silence forced you to listen inward. Life is not punishing you with heaviness. It is positioning you for elevation. It is not delaying your progress. It is strengthening your foundation. It is not taking things away randomly. It is aligning you with something more suitable for who you are becoming. The doorway is not somewhere far away. It is forming within you. Each moment of awareness builds it. Each lesson learned strengthens it. Each attachment released widens it. When you fully accept this process, the heaviness begins to feel purposeful instead of overwhelming. You are not stuck. You are transforming. You are not lost. You are being redirected. You are not broken. You are being rebuilt. And when you finally step into the new reality that this heavy season has prepared you for, you will understand that everything you endured was shaping you for something greater than your old self could have handled. 11. The person you are becoming will thank you for surviving this season. There is a truth about growth that only becomes clear after you have walked through it. While you are inside the heavy season, it feels endless. The pressure feels constant. The confusion feels thick. The silence feels loud. You wake up some mornings with a weight you cannot fully explain. You go to sleep with thoughts that feel deeper than before. You question who you are, where you are going, and why everything feels different. But there will come a day when you look back at this exact season and realize that it was not meant to destroy you. It was shaping you into someone your past self could not even imagine. The Buddha taught that life unfolds through causes and conditions. Nothing appears without reason. Every experience, especially the uncomfortable ones, carries the potential for awakening. But awakening rarely feels dramatic in the moment. It feels subtle. It feels like slow internal shifts. It feels like losing interest in things that once controlled you. It feels like choosing silence instead of argument. It feels like pausing before reacting. These small shifts are not random. They are signs that your consciousness is expanding. Right now, you may feel uncertain about your identity. The version of you that once felt solid now feels unstable. But instability during growth is not weakness, it is restructuring. When a building is being reinforced, its foundation must be examined. Weak sections must be repaired. Old supports may need to be removed. During that process, the structure may look incomplete. But the goal is not destruction. The goal is strength. Your inner world is undergoing the same process. The person you are becoming requires qualities that your old life did not demand. Greater patience, greater emotional discipline, greater clarity, greater resilience. These qualities are not formed in comfort, they are formed in pressure. Each difficult conversation you navigate calmly is shaping you. Each disappointment you endure without collapsing is shaping you. Each moment you choose growth over ego is shaping you. The heaviness is not random. It is resistance training for your character. There will be moments when you feel misunderstood. The people around you may not see the silent battles you are fighting internally. They may not notice how much restraint you are practicing. They may not understand why your energy feels different. But transformation is often invisible to others before it becomes visible to you. The Buddha emphasized inner work because true change begins inside. External validation may not arrive immediately, but internal strength is forming quietly. The person you are becoming is more self-aware. You are beginning to recognize your patterns instead of being controlled by them. You are noticing when fear tries to influence your decisions. You are observing when attachment creates anxiety. You are becoming the witness of your thoughts instead of being lost in them. This awareness is powerful. It creates space between impulse and action. In that space, maturity develops. The heavy season is teaching you endurance. It is teaching you that you can sit with discomfort without running from it. It is teaching you that not every emotion requires immediate reaction. It is teaching you that silence is not emptiness, but clarity forming. These lessons may not feel dramatic, but they are foundational. The person you are becoming will rely on this endurance in the future. Imagine standing years from now in a position of greater stability. Imagine handling a situation calmly that would have once shattered you. Imagine responding thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Imagine feeling grounded even when circumstances are uncertain. That version of you will exist because of this season. The confusion you feel now is refining your judgment. The loneliness you feel now is strengthening your independence. The pressure you feel now is expanding your capacity. There is also a quiet confidence forming beneath the surface. It is not loud or boastful. It is steady. It grows each time you overcome something difficult. It grows each time you choose awareness over ego. It grows each time you reflect instead of blame. This confidence is not built on praise. It is built on experience. It is built on survival. The person you are becoming will carry this confidence into every future challenge. The Buddha taught that attachment to comfort is one of the greatest obstacles to growth. Comfort keeps you small, it keeps you predictable, it keeps you limited. The heavy season disrupts comfort. It forces expansion, it pushes you beyond your old emotional boundaries. You may feel stretched thin, but stretching increases flexibility. You are becoming adaptable. You are becoming resilient. You are becoming capable of carrying more responsibility without losing balance. There will come a moment when this season ends. It may not end with a dramatic event. It may end quietly. You will simply notice that things feel clearer, your thoughts feel calmer, your reactions feel slower, your decisions feel more intentional. You will realize that the heaviness has transformed into strength. That is when you will understand the purpose of this chapter. The person you are becoming will look back at this season with gratitude, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. You will see that without this discomfort, you would have remained limited. Without this confusion, you would have remained unaware. Without this pressure, you would have remained fragile. The growth required friction. Right now, you are in the middle of the process. It may feel endless, but transformation always feels longest while it is happening. Just as a seed buried in darkness cannot see the sunlight yet still grows upward, you are growing even when you cannot see the final outcome. The darkness is not permanent. It is protective. It is nurturing strength beneath the surface. The person you are becoming is calmer under pressure, more disciplined in thought, more intentional in action, less dependent on external validation, more aligned with inner truth. That version of you will not fear heavy seasons because it will understand their purpose. It will recognize pressure as preparation. It will see silence as clarity. It will interpret change as elevation. Life is moving you forward, even when it feels like you are standing still. The discomfort is not a signal of failure. It is evidence of evolution. You are shedding what no longer fits. You are strengthening what must carry you forward. You are learning lessons that comfort could never teach. One day, when you stand in a place of greater clarity and strength, you will silently thank this version of yourself for not giving up. You will thank yourself for enduring the confusion. You will thank yourself for choosing reflection over reaction. You will thank yourself for staying present instead of escaping, because without this endurance, that future strength would not exist. The heavy season is not your enemy. It is your training ground. It is the furnace where your resilience is forged. It is the classroom where your awareness deepens. It is the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. And when you finally cross that bridge, you will understand that nothing felt the same because you were never meant to remain the same. 12. This is the moment your old life quietly ends and your real life begins. There is a point in deep transformation where you may not hear a loud announcement, you may not see fireworks, and you may not experience a dramatic turning point, yet something fundamental inside you has shifted forever. The way you see the world has changed. The way you see yourself has changed. The way you respond to challenges, relationships, silence, and pressure has changed. You may still wake up in the same room and walk the same streets, but internally you are no longer living the same life. This is the moment your old life quietly ends and your real life begins. The Buddha taught that awakening is not about escaping reality, it is about seeing it clearly. Most people move through life reacting unconsciously. They chase approval without realizing it. They fear rejection without examining it. They cling to comfort without questioning it. They define themselves through roles, relationships, and achievements without ever asking who they are beneath those layers. But when growth becomes unavoidable, when life begins to feel heavy and unfamiliar, it is often because those unconscious patterns are dissolving. You are no longer asleep inside your habits. You are becoming aware of them. This awareness feels uncomfortable because it disrupts autopilot living. You begin noticing how often you once acted out of fear. You begin noticing how often you once shrank yourself to fit into spaces that did not honor your depth. You begin noticing how often you confuse distraction for happiness. These realizations are not meant to shame you. They are meant to free you. But freedom always requires letting go of illusion, and illusion is comfortable until it cracks. When the old life begins to end, it does not disappear overnight. It fades gradually. Certain desires lose their intensity. Certain relationships lose their emotional control over you. Certain fears lose their power. You may still experience moments of doubt, but they no longer define you in the same way. You may still feel discomfort, but you now observe it instead of drowning in it. This is the quiet shift from unconscious living to conscious living. The heaviness you felt throughout this transformation was the weight of shedding identities that no longer served you. You were carrying expectations that were not fully yours. You were carrying fears inherited from past experiences. You were carrying roles that you had outgrown, but were afraid to release. As these layers fall away, it can feel like loss. But in truth, it is liberation. You are not losing yourself. You are removing what was never fully aligned with your authentic self. The Buddha emphasized non-attachment not as emotional coldness, but as clarity. When you detach from what no longer defines you, you create space for truth. You stop chasing what drains you. You stop arguing with what cannot be controlled. You stop proving what does not need validation. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you care wisely. You invest your energy where growth is possible, not where ego demands attention. As your real life begins, you may notice a deeper calm forming within you. It is not the excitement of constant stimulation. It is not the thrill of external approval. It is steadiness. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can survive discomfort. It is the stability that forms when you no longer depend entirely on external circumstances to feel worthy. This steadiness is powerful because it cannot be easily shaken. Your real life begins when you take full responsibility for your mind. You begin understanding that your thoughts shape your perception, and your perception shapes your experience. Instead of blaming situations for your emotional state, you begin observing how you interpret those situations. Instead of reacting instantly, you pause. That pause becomes your power. In that pause, you choose your response. In that choice, your new identity forms. The old life was built on reaction. The real life is built on awareness. The old life was shaped by external influence. The real life is guided by internal clarity. The old life feared change. The real life understands that change is growth. This transition is not always dramatic. It is subtle but profound. It changes how you speak. It changes how you think. It changes how you treat yourself. There may still be challenges ahead. Awakening does not remove difficulty, but it changes your relationship with difficulty. You no longer see problems as proof of failure. You see them as opportunities to strengthen your awareness. You no longer see silence as emptiness. You see it as space for reflection. You no longer see loneliness as abandonment. You see it as independence forming. As your real life begins, your priorities shift. You begin valuing depth over noise. You begin choosing peace over drama. You begin seeking meaning over distraction. These choices may distance you from environments that once felt normal, but alignment often requires separation. You are not becoming isolated. You are becoming intentional. The Buddha's teachings remind us that liberation comes from mastery of the mind, not through force, but through understanding. When you understand your thoughts, they lose control over you. When you understand your emotions, they lose their chaos. When you understand impermanence, you stop clinging to what must change. Your real life begins when you accept impermanence instead of fighting it. There will come a moment when you realize that the heaviness you once feared was the doorway to this clarity. Without the discomfort, you would not have questioned your habits. Without the pressure, you would not have strengthened your resilience. Without the silence, you would not have heard your inner voice. Every heavy moment was preparing you for this awakening. Your real life is not about perfection. It is about presence. It is about living consciously instead of automatically. It is about choosing growth even when comfort calls you back. It is about trusting that transformation is not punishment, but elevation. One day, you will look back at your old life and see how much of it was driven by fear and habit. You will not judge that version of yourself. You will thank it, because it carried you to this point. But you will also recognize that staying there would have limited your potential. Growth required courage. It required letting go of familiar versions of yourself. This is the quiet ending and the powerful beginning. The old life fades not with noise but with awareness. The real life begins not with applause but with clarity. You are stepping into a version of yourself that is stronger, calmer, and more grounded than before. Nothing feels the same because you are finally seeing clearly. Nothing feels the same because you are no longer living unconsciously. Nothing feels the same because your awareness has deepened beyond your past limitations. This is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of living it fully awake. 13. You are not breaking down, you are breaking through into a higher version of yourself. There is a powerful illusion that appears during deep transformation. It convinces you that you are falling apart. It whispers that you are losing stability. It tells you that you are confused, distracted, emotional, or behind in life. It makes you question your direction and doubt your strength. But what if that voice is wrong? What if you are not breaking down at all? What if you are breaking through? The heaviest seasons of life rarely announce themselves as preparation. They disguise themselves as uncertainty. You wake up feeling disconnected from things that once felt meaningful. You look at your goals and feel a strange distance from them. You sit in conversations and feel like you are observing rather than participating. You begin asking deeper questions that you once avoided. Why am I really doing what I am doing? Why do I still tolerate what drains me? Why does success feel different now? These questions are not signs of weakness. They are signs of awakening. The Buddha taught that awakening begins when we see suffering clearly, not to become discouraged, but to become conscious. Most people move through life reacting automatically. They chase comfort without examining its cost. They avoid discomfort without realizing its purpose. But when you begin breaking through, comfort loses its control over you. You start valuing growth more than ease. That shift feels destabilizing because your old identity was built around familiar patterns. Now those patterns are dissolving. Breaking through means shedding the mental structures that once felt permanent. It means realizing that some of your beliefs were built on fear. It means noticing that some of your ambitions were built on comparison. It means understanding that some of your relationships were built on dependency rather than alignment. These realizations are heavy because they challenge your previous sense of certainty. But certainty built on illusion cannot sustain a higher life. When a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly, it does not simply grow wings while remaining intact. It dissolves inside the cocoon. Its old form literally breaks down before a new form emerges. If the caterpillar had awareness during that stage, it might feel like destruction. But it is transformation. In the same way, you may feel like parts of you are dissolving. Your old reactions feel foreign. Your old fears feel less convincing. Your old habits feel empty. This is not collapse. It is reconstruction. The heaviness you feel is the weight of becoming more conscious. Conscious living requires responsibility. You can no longer blame others for every emotional reaction. You can no longer hide behind excuses that once protected your ego. You can no longer pretend that certain patterns are harmless. Awareness removes ignorance, and ignorance is comfortable. Breaking through means facing truth. There will be moments when you feel misunderstood. Others may see your quiet reflection as distance. They may see your reduced tolerance for drama as coldness. They may not understand why you are no longer interested in the same distractions, but growth is rarely comfortable for those who remain unchanged. You are not obligated to shrink your awareness to preserve familiarity. Breaking through also means developing emotional discipline. In the past, You may have reacted instantly to discomfort. You may have defended yourself quickly. You may have spoken without pause. But now you are beginning to pause. That pause feels strange because it interrupts old habits. In that pause, however, power is born. You choose your response instead of being controlled by impulse. You observe your anger instead of being consumed by it. You examine your fear instead of obeying it. That is breakthrough. The Buddha emphasized mindfulness as liberation. When you become aware of your thoughts, they lose their authority over you. When you observe your emotions, they lose their chaos. Breaking through means mastering your inner world rather than being mastered by it. That mastery does not happen in comfort. It happens in tension. It happens in silence. It happens in reflection. There may be days when you feel exhausted from thinking deeply, days when you wish you could return to simpler reactions, days when ignorance feels easier than awareness. But once you have seen clearly, you cannot return to blindness, and you should not want to. The discomfort of growth is temporary. The strength it builds is permanent. Breaking through also reshapes your definition of success. You no longer measure success solely by external achievements. You measure it by emotional stability. You measure it by clarity of intention. You measure it by your ability to remain grounded under pressure. This shift is profound because it reorients your life around internal mastery rather than external comparison. Your future requires this breakthrough. The opportunities ahead of you demand resilience. The responsibilities ahead of you demand clarity. The relationships ahead of you demand emotional maturity. The old version of you could not sustain those demands, so life is strengthening you now. It is increasing pressure so that your capacity expands. It is challenging your identity so that your foundation becomes flexible. You may still feel moments of doubt. That is natural. Doubt does not mean regression. It means you are stretching beyond familiarity. Growth feels unfamiliar because it is new territory. You are walking into parts of yourself that were previously unexplored. That exploration requires courage. The heavy season is not a sign that life is against you. It is a sign that life trusts you with expansion. It is preparing you for a reality that requires a steadier mind. It is building a version of you that can handle complexity without panic. It is forging resilience that comfort could never create. One day, you will stand in a place of calm strength and realize that this season was the turning point. You will notice that criticism no longer shakes you the way it once did. You will notice that uncertainty no longer terrifies you. You will notice that your reactions have softened into responses. That is breakthrough embodied. Breaking through does not mean becoming perfect. It means becoming conscious. It means understanding that discomfort is not your enemy. It means trusting that heaviness carries purpose. It means recognizing that nothing feels the same because you are evolving beyond what once defined you. The old structures within you are dissolving. The new foundation is forming. It may feel messy in the middle, but transformation always looks chaotic before it looks complete. You are not falling apart. You are shedding illusions. You are not losing control. You are gaining awareness. You are not drifting aimlessly. You are stepping into higher alignment. And when this breakthrough completes its work, you will understand that the heaviness was not there to bury you. It was there to break the shell that kept you small. 14. The version of you that survives this season will live a life your old self could never sustain. There is a truth about transformation that only reveals itself after the storm has passed. While you are inside the heavy season, everything feels uncertain. Your thoughts feel deeper than before. Your emotions feel stronger, yet quieter at the same time. You question decisions you once made with confidence. You hesitate where you once reacted instantly. You feel detached from things that once defined you. It can feel like you are losing parts of yourself. But what if those parts were never meant to stay? What if this season is not stripping you of who you are, but refining you into who you must become? The Buddha taught that life is impermanent and constantly shifting. The suffering we experience often comes not from change itself, but from resisting change. During this season, resistance may feel natural. You may want clarity immediately. You may want answers right now. You may want certainty about where your life is heading. But growth rarely moves in straight lines. It unfolds gradually, quietly, and sometimes painfully. The version of you that will emerge from this process cannot be rushed into existence. It must be forged through endurance. Right now, you are being reshaped internally. Old reactions are being replaced with reflection. Old fears are being examined instead of blindly obeyed. Old attachments are loosening their grip. This is not random discomfort. It is intentional reconstruction. The mind you once operated from is evolving. The emotional patterns you once depended on are dissolving. The identity you once clung to is expanding. When a person grows beyond their previous limits, the old life begins to feel smaller. Conversations that once excited you feel shallow. Goals that once motivated you feel incomplete. Environments that once felt safe begin to feel restrictive. This is not because those things changed, it is because you did. Your awareness has deepened. You are seeing through illusions that once controlled you. You are recognizing patterns that once felt invisible. That recognition changes everything. The version of you that survives this season will carry emotional discipline that your old self never possessed. In the past, you may have reacted quickly to criticism. You may have chased validation without realizing it. You may have feared rejection more than you admitted. But through this heavy season, you are learning something greater than comfort. You are learning self-regulation. You are learning how to sit with discomfort without collapsing. You are learning how to respond instead of react. The Buddha emphasized mindfulness as the foundation of liberation. Mindfulness does not remove pain, but it transforms your relationship with it. When you observe your thoughts, they lose control over you. When you acknowledge your emotions without being consumed by them, you gain power. This season is strengthening your ability to witness rather than be overwhelmed. That ability will serve you in ways you cannot yet imagine. Your old self may have survived through distraction. You may have avoided silence because it felt uncomfortable. You may have filled your time with noise to avoid facing deeper questions. But now, silence feels different. It feels heavier, but also more honest. In silence, you are meeting yourself fully. You are confronting insecurities you once ignored. You are examining desires you once accepted without question. This confrontation is not destruction. It is clarity forming. The version of you that emerges from this process will not seek peace from external conditions alone. It will cultivate peace internally. That internal peace will not depend on constant approval, perfect circumstances, or predictable outcomes. It will be grounded in awareness. It will be stable because it is built on understanding rather than illusion. There will be days when you feel tired of growing, days when you wish life would pause its demands, days when you long for the simplicity of your old mindset. But remember this, your old mindset could not carry your future. The opportunities, responsibilities, and relationships ahead of you require greater emotional strength. They require patience under pressure. They require clarity in uncertainty. They require a mind that does not collapse under stress. This season is preparing you for that future. It is building resilience through challenge. It is building discipline through discomfort. It is building maturity through reflection. The heaviness you feel is not meant to crush you. It is meant to expand your capacity. When iron is placed in fire, it does not enjoy the heat. But without heat, it remains brittle. Without pressure, it remains fragile. The fire refines it, the pressure strengthens it. In the same way, this season is refining you. It is removing impurities in your thinking. It is burning away insecurity. It is strengthening your foundation. One day you will stand in a situation that would have once overwhelmed you, and you will notice something different. You will notice calm where panic once lived. You will notice clarity where confusion once dominated. You will notice steadiness where fear once controlled you. That moment will be evidence of this season's purpose. The version of you that survives this will not fear change the same way. It will understand that change is elevation. It will recognize that discomfort often precedes expansion. It will trust that heaviness carries meaning. That trust is powerful. It allows you to move forward even when certainty is not visible. You are not losing yourself in this process. You are shedding what was limiting you. You are not becoming cold or distant. You are becoming grounded. You are not becoming indifferent. You are becoming intentional. There is a difference. The Buddha taught that liberation comes from understanding the nature of the mind. When you understand that thoughts are temporary and emotions are passing, you stop identifying with them so completely. You begin observing instead of reacting. That observation creates freedom. Freedom creates peace. Peace creates strength. The life your future self will live requires this strength. It requires the ability to withstand uncertainty without panic. It requires the ability to handle success without arrogance. It requires the ability to endure criticism without collapse. Those qualities are not built in comfort. They are built in seasons like this. Right now, you may not see the full picture. You may only see fragments, but transformation is happening beneath the surface. Like roots growing underground before a tree becomes visible, your strength is forming quietly. When it finally emerges, it will feel natural. You will not even recognize how far you have come until you compare yourself to who you once were. This heavy season is not the end of your stability. It is the beginning of deeper stability. It is not the end of your joy. It is the foundation of more sustainable joy. It is not the end of your clarity. It is the path toward greater clarity. The version of you that survives this will be more grounded, more self-aware, more emotionally balanced, and more aligned with truth than ever before. And when that version looks back, it will not regret this season. It will understand that without it, growth would have been incomplete. Nothing feels the same because you are evolving beyond your past limits. Nothing feels the same because you are no longer operating from the same level of awareness. Nothing feels the same because you are stepping into a life that your old self could never have sustained. And when this transformation completes its work, you will realize that this season was not here to break you. It was here to build you into someone stronger than you ever imagined you could become. 15. The weight you are carrying is reshaping your destiny. There are periods in life when the weight feels constant, as if you are carrying something invisible that no one else can see. You wake up with it. You move through your day with it. You lie down at night with it. It sits in your chest as pressure, in your mind as overthinking, and in your heart as a quiet restlessness. You may not even be able to explain exactly what feels heavy. It is not always one specific problem. It is a mixture of change, awareness, responsibility, and emotional growth. But what if that weight is not random? What if it is reshaping the direction of your life in ways you cannot yet fully understand? The Buddha taught that life unfolds according to causes and conditions. Nothing appears without contributing factors. The discomfort you are experiencing is not a meaningless accident. It is the result of inner conditions shifting. Your awareness has expanded. Your perception has deepened. Your tolerance for shallow living has decreased. When inner conditions change, outer life must eventually adjust. That adjustment phase feels heavy because it is transitional. You are no longer fully aligned with your old self, but you are still becoming your new self. The weight you are carrying is the pressure of expansion, just as a seed underground must push against soil before it can rise toward the light. You are pushing against old limitations before stepping into greater clarity. That push requires energy, it requires endurance, it requires patience. From the outside, nothing dramatic may seem to be happening, but inside, your entire foundation is being strengthened. In earlier chapters of your life, you may have defined success by comfort and approval. You may have measured progress by external validation. But this season is teaching you something deeper. It is teaching you that true strength is internal. It is teaching you that stability does not come from circumstances alone. It comes from mastering your reactions to those circumstances. There are moments now when you pause before speaking. That pause is growth. There are moments when you choose silence instead of argument. That silence is strength. There are moments when you observe your fear rather than immediately obeying it. That observation is awareness. These small shifts may not feel dramatic, but they are reshaping your destiny. Destiny is not a single event. It is the accumulation of daily choices made from a transformed mindset. The weight you carry is teaching you discipline. It is teaching you that not every emotion deserves expression. It is teaching you that not every thought deserves belief. It is teaching you that not every situation requires reaction. This discipline is not suppression. It is refinement. You are learning how to hold power without being controlled by it. The Buddha emphasized that suffering often arises from attachment. When you cling tightly to what must change, you create friction. This heavy season is helping you loosen that grip. You are realizing that some attachments were rooted in fear, some expectations were rooted in ego, some ambitions were rooted in comparison. As these roots loosen, you feel unstable. But instability during transformation is necessary. The ground must shift before a new structure can be built. You may also feel a growing sense of distance from certain environments. Conversations that once entertained you now feel draining. Goals that once excited you now feel incomplete. This is not confusion. It is clarity emerging. You are beginning to align with deeper values. You are no longer satisfied with surface-level living. That shift changes your trajectory. The weight reshaping your destiny is also strengthening your resilience. You are discovering that you can survive uncertainty. You are discovering that you can endure silence. You are discovering that you can face discomfort without running from it. Each time you remain present instead of escaping, you reinforce your inner strength. That reinforcement builds character. Destiny is often imagined as something dramatic and external, but in reality, it is shaped internally long before it manifests externally. The mindset you cultivate now will determine how you respond to future opportunities. The discipline you develop now will determine whether you can sustain future success. The clarity you gain now will determine the quality of your future decisions. Imagine stepping into a future chapter where responsibility increases, where people look to you for stability, where opportunities demand maturity. The old version of you may have reacted impulsively. It may have depended too heavily on approval. It may have crumbled under pressure. But the version of you being formed now is steadier. It is reflective. It is grounded. This transformation does not mean you stop feeling deeply. It means you feel consciously. It does not mean you become detached from life. It means you engage with life intentionally. It does not mean you avoid challenges. It means you face them with clarity instead of panic. The heaviness you feel is training. It is mental resistance strengthening your focus. It is emotional resistance strengthening your stability. It is spiritual resistance strengthening your awareness. Just as muscles grow through tension, your character grows through pressure. There will come a moment when the weight feels lighter, not because life becomes effortless, but because you have become stronger. The same challenges will exist, but your perception will be different. You will no longer interpret every obstacle as a threat. You will see it as growth. You will no longer interpret every delay as failure. You will see it as timing. The Buddha taught that liberation begins with understanding the nature of the mind. When you understand that thoughts are temporary and emotions are passing, you stop identifying with every fluctuation. You begin to observe patterns instead of being trapped inside them. That observation changes your path. It allows you to choose consciously rather than react automatically. Your destiny is being reshaped because your awareness is expanding. With expanded awareness comes responsibility. You can no longer live unconsciously. You can no longer repeat patterns without noticing them. That noticing is power. Right now, you may not see the full impact of this transformation. You may only see fragments, but every heavy moment is carving strength into your character. Every reflective pause is sharpening your discernment. Every difficult decision is strengthening your independence. The weight is not here to burden you forever. It is here to prepare you. It is here to refine your perception. It is here to elevate your standards. It is here to teach you that your peace is worth protecting. One day, when you look back at this chapter, you will understand that it was not a setback. It was a shaping process. The heaviness was necessary because the destiny ahead of you required a stronger foundation. Without this season, you would have remained limited. With it, you are expanding. You are not stuck. You are being strengthened. You are not falling behind. You are being prepared. You are not losing direction. You are recalibrating your path. And when the weight has completed its work, you will stand in a reality that reflects the strength you built during this season. You will realize that the discomfort was not random. It was purposeful. It was guiding you toward a destiny that only a stronger, wiser, more grounded version of you could carry. 16. The storm you are surviving is designing the leader within you. There are moments in life when it feels as if everything is being tested at once. Your patience is tested. Your confidence is tested. Your emotional stability is tested. Situations appear that demand more maturity than you feel ready to offer. Conversations require restraint. Decisions require clarity. Silence requires strength. You may look around and wonder why this storm is happening now, why life suddenly feels heavier than it used to. But what if this storm is not here to ruin you? What if it is designing you? The Buddha taught that growth does not arise from comfort. It arises from awareness born through challenge. Most people live within the boundaries of what feels easy and predictable. They build identities around routine and familiarity. But when life prepares someone for greater responsibility, it stretches those boundaries. It introduces complexity. It removes certainty. It increases pressure, not to break the person, but to awaken the strength that comfort could never reveal. A storm does not exist to destroy the mountain. It exists to shape it. Wind and rain carve edges, deepen valleys, and strengthen foundations. In the same way, the storm you are surviving is carving resilience into your character. It is teaching you discipline where there was once impulse. It is teaching you reflection where there was once reaction. It is teaching you emotional control where there was once sensitivity without boundaries. You may feel overwhelmed at times because growth feels like losing control. Your old ways of handling stress may no longer work. Distractions no longer satisfy you the way they once did. Escapes no longer feel convincing. You are being pushed to sit with discomfort instead of running from it. That sitting feels heavy because it demands awareness. But awareness is the beginning of leadership. Leadership does not begin when others follow you. It begins when you learn to guide your own mind. When you can remain steady during chaos, you are leading yourself. When you can choose calm over panic, you are leading yourself. When you can speak with clarity instead of anger, you are leading yourself. This internal leadership is being forged right now in the middle of your storm. The Buddha emphasized that the mind, when untrained, becomes the source of suffering. But when trained, it becomes the path to liberation. Your storm is training your mind. Each difficult moment is strengthening your ability to remain present. Each emotional challenge is strengthening your ability to observe rather than react. Each disappointment is strengthening your ability to endure without collapsing. There will be moments when you feel isolated in this process. Growth often feels lonely because it separates you from previous versions of yourself and from environments that no longer match your awareness. But isolation during transformation is not abandonment, it is refinement. It is the space where clarity sharpens. The leader within you is not loud or aggressive. It is steady, it is grounded, it is capable of carrying responsibility without demanding applause. That steadiness is built during storms, not sunshine. Anyone can feel confident when life is easy. True strength appears when circumstances are uncertain. You may notice that your tolerance for drama has decreased. You may notice that you no longer respond emotionally to every opinion. You may notice that you value silence more than noise. These shifts are not accidental. They are signs of maturity forming. The storm is removing unnecessary layers from your personality. It is refining you. Leadership also requires humility. It requires the willingness to examine your own flaws before pointing out others. This storm is revealing your patterns. It is showing you where fear still influences your decisions. It is showing you where attachment still creates anxiety. This exposure may feel uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Awareness creates growth. Ignorance preserves weakness. There will be days when you feel exhausted by the process, days when you question whether the wait is worth it. But remember this, the leader within you cannot be built through shortcuts. It requires endurance. It requires self-discipline. It requires reflection. The Buddha's journey toward enlightenment was not smooth. It was filled with doubt, sacrifice, and perseverance. Awakening required letting go of illusions and facing reality without distortion. Your storm is asking you to do the same. It is asking you to release outdated identities. It is asking you to step beyond comfort. It is asking you to trust that growth is occurring even when clarity is not immediate. Imagine yourself years from now, standing in a situation that demands stability. Others may look to you for calm. Others may rely on your clarity. The version of you who survives this storm will be able to stand steady. That steadiness is being designed now. The storm is teaching you emotional regulation. It is teaching you patience. It is teaching you the difference between reacting and responding. It is teaching you to choose wisely rather than impulsively. These lessons may feel subtle, but they are powerful. You are not being hardened into coldness. You are being strengthened into stability. You are not becoming detached from life. You are becoming intentional about where your energy flows. You are not losing sensitivity. You are learning to manage it. Every storm eventually passes, but the person who survives it is never the same as the person who entered it. You are gaining resilience that comfort could never teach. You are gaining clarity that distraction could never provide. You are gaining strength that avoidance could never build. One day, when the sky clears, you will realize that the storm was not your enemy. It was your teacher, it was your trainer, it was the architect of the leader within you. The heaviness you feel is not permanent. It is transitional. It is the weight of growth reshaping your foundation. It is the tension required for expansion. You are not drowning in this storm. You are being shaped by it. You are not losing yourself. You are discovering a stronger version of yourself. And when the storm completes its work, you will stand calmer, wiser, and more grounded than ever before. The leader within you will no longer be potential, it will be reality. 17. The life that is calling you forward will not accept the old version of you. There is a quiet truth that most people avoid until life forces them to face it. The next level of your life cannot be entered with the same mindset that created your current struggles. The opportunities ahead of you, the clarity ahead of you, the peace ahead of you, and even the relationships ahead of you demand a stronger, wiser, more disciplined version of you. And so life begins the uncomfortable work of transformation. It does not ask for permission. It simply begins reshaping you. At first, this reshaping feels like confusion. You feel disconnected from your old goals. You question your old habits. You begin noticing patterns that once felt invisible. You feel less satisfied by things that once entertained you. This can feel like loss, but it is actually elevation. When a person rises internally, the environment that once felt normal begins to feel too small. The Buddha taught that attachment to identity is one of the deepest sources of suffering. We cling to who we think we are because it feels stable. We say, "This is just how I am." We defend our reactions. We justify our fears. We protect our habits. But growth requires flexibility. It requires letting go of rigid self-definitions. The life that is calling you forward will not accept the old version of you, because that version was built for survival, not expansion. Survival mindset focuses on safety, validation, and comfort. Expansion mindset focuses on growth, awareness, and purpose. The heaviness you feel is the friction between these two mindsets. Part of you wants familiarity. Another part of you knows you are capable of more. That internal tension is not weakness, it is transition. You may feel lonely during this shift because not everyone around you is evolving at the same pace. Conversations may feel shallow. Certain environments may feel draining. You may crave solitude more than before. This is not isolation. It is recalibration. Your energy is being refined. You are becoming selective about what influences your mind. The life ahead of you requires emotional discipline. It requires the ability to remain steady when situations are unpredictable. It requires resilience when things do not go according to plan. The old version of you may have reacted impulsively. It may have depended heavily on external validation. It may have avoided discomfort at all costs. But the new version forming within you understands something deeper. It understands that discomfort is a teacher. The Buddha emphasized mindfulness as the path to freedom. When you observe your thoughts without immediately identifying with them, you gain power. When you notice your fear without obeying it, you gain strength. When you experience anger without letting it control your actions, you gain maturity. These are not small achievements. They are foundations for a different life. The life calling you forward is not built on ego, it is built on clarity. It is not built on proving yourself to others, it is built on mastering yourself. It is not built on chasing approval. It is built on inner stability. That stability cannot be inherited. It must be earned through experience. This heavy season is your training ground. It is stripping away illusions. It is exposing insecurities. It is challenging your attachments. It is demanding patience. You may feel tired of growing. You may wish for simpler days, but simplicity built on ignorance cannot sustain a higher life. Consider how a tree grows. When it first emerges from the ground, it is fragile. It bends easily in the wind, but over time, as it faces storms and seasons, its roots deepen, its trunk thickens. It becomes strong enough to withstand forces that once would have uprooted it. You are in that rooting phase. The storms are deepening your roots. The old version of you may have feared rejection. The new version is learning that rejection is redirection. The old version may have panicked during uncertainty. The new version is learning to trust the process. The old version may have sought constant reassurance. The new version is learning to reassure itself. This is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming aware. Awareness changes your trajectory. It changes the decisions you make. It changes the boundaries you set. It changes the way you interpret events. Over time, these changes compound. They shape your destiny. You may not see immediate external results. Transformation is often invisible at first, but internally your foundation is shifting. You are becoming less reactive and more intentional. You are becoming less dependent and more self-sufficient. You are becoming less fearful and more grounded. The life ahead of you will test you in new ways. It will present opportunities that require confidence. It will present challenges that require composure. It will present moments that require integrity. Without this season of growth, you would not be prepared. The heaviness you feel is not permanent. It is transitional. It is the pressure required to elevate you. It is the weight that strengthens your mental muscles. It is the tension that increases your emotional flexibility. One day, you will look back and realize that the discomfort was necessary. Without it, you would have remained limited. Without it, you would have repeated the same patterns. Without it, you would not have discovered the depth of your resilience. The life calling you forward is not about external success alone. It is about internal mastery. It is about waking up with clarity instead of confusion. It is about responding thoughtfully instead of reacting emotionally. It is about choosing peace over chaos. You are not losing yourself in this transformation. You are refining yourself. You are not becoming distant. You are becoming intentional. You are not drifting aimlessly. You are being redirected. The old version of you served its purpose. It helped you navigate earlier chapters. But the chapters ahead require a stronger protagonist. They require someone who has faced uncertainty and remained steady. They require someone who has endured silence and gained clarity. They require someone who has felt pressure and grown resilient. That someone is forming within you now. Nothing feels the same because you are not meant to remain the same. Nothing feels comfortable because comfort would keep you small. Nothing feels certain because certainty built on illusion must dissolve before truth can appear. You are being invited into a higher version of yourself. It may feel like loss at first, but it is expansion. It may feel like confusion, but it is awakening. It may feel like heaviness, but it is preparation. The life ahead of you will not accept the old version of you because the old version was built for survival. The new version is being built for purpose. And when you finally step into that purpose, you will understand that every uncomfortable moment was shaping you for it. 18. The season that feels like an ending is actually the beginning of your true alignment. There are times in life when everything feels like it is closing in on you at once. Familiar doors seem to shut quietly. Certain relationships feel distant without a dramatic argument. Opportunities you once expected do not unfold the way you imagined. Your energy feels different, your focus shifts, and your heart no longer reacts to things the way it used to. It can feel like an ending. It can feel like loss. It can even feel like failure. But what if this is not an ending at all? What if this is the precise moment your life is being redirected into true alignment? The Buddha taught that suffering often arises when we cling to what is already dissolving. We resist change because familiarity feels safe. Even if familiarity is limiting, it feels predictable. We build identities around certain roles, certain expectations, certain outcomes. When those structures begin to fade, we panic. We assume something is wrong. But impermanence is not punishment. It is the nature of existence. Everything shifts. Everything evolves. And when your awareness begins to deepen, the old structures that once supported you are no longer strong enough to hold your expansion. The heaviness you feel in this season is not collapse. It is recalibration. Your internal compass is being adjusted. The direction that once felt certain may no longer feel aligned. Goals that once motivated you now feel incomplete. Conversations that once excited you now feel empty. This does not mean you are ungrateful or lost. It means you are growing beyond your previous level of consciousness. Alignment is not always loud. It does not always arrive with excitement. Sometimes it arrives through discomfort. It forces you to question your path. It forces you to examine your motives. It forces you to pause. That pause feels unfamiliar because you were used to constant movement. But constant movement does not always mean progress. Sometimes it means avoidance. This season is teaching you to move intentionally rather than impulsively. The Buddha emphasized mindfulness as a way of seeing clearly. When you begin observing your thoughts instead of being consumed by them, you gain perspective. When you examine your fears instead of reacting to them, you gain control. When you accept impermanence instead of fighting it, you gain peace. This season is strengthening that awareness. It is helping you see where you once operated on autopilot. You may notice that your tolerance for chaos has decreased. You may notice that you crave depth rather than distraction. You may notice that you value solitude more than noise. These are not signs of isolation. They are signs of refinement. Your energy is being purified. Your focus is sharpening. Your values are clarifying. The ending you feel is not destruction, it is shedding. Just as trees release leaves when seasons change, you are releasing attachments that no longer serve your growth. Some attachments were rooted in fear. Some were rooted in ego. Some were rooted in habit. Letting them go feels heavy because they were once part of your identity, but identity built on illusion cannot support a higher life. True alignment requires courage. It requires the willingness to walk away from what is familiar but misaligned. It requires trusting that the unknown holds potential. That trust does not appear instantly. It develops slowly, through reflection and endurance. This season may feel lonely because alignment often separates you from environments that no longer resonate. But loneliness during growth is not emptiness. It is space. Space allows clarity. Space allows intention. Space allows you to reconnect with your inner voice. The Buddha taught that inner peace is not dependent on external conditions. It is cultivated through awareness and discipline. You are being trained to build that peace internally. Situations that once triggered emotional chaos are now teaching you stability. Silence that once felt uncomfortable is now teaching you reflection. Uncertainty that once felt terrifying is now teaching you patience. Alignment also reshapes your sense of purpose. You may begin questioning ambitions that once defined you. You may begin asking whether your goals reflect your true values or simply societal expectations. This questioning can feel unsettling because it challenges the path you once believed was fixed. But questioning is not regression, it is refinement. The heaviness in this season is the weight of responsibility. With awareness comes accountability. You can no longer blame circumstances entirely. You begin examining your choices. You begin recognizing your patterns. You begin taking ownership of your reactions. This responsibility strengthens you. There will be moments when you doubt this process, moments when you wish things would return to how they were. But remember, how they were no longer fits who you are becoming. The ending you feel is necessary because the next chapter requires a stronger foundation. Alignment often feels uncomfortable before it feels empowering. It demands honesty, it demands discipline, it demands patience. But once alignment stabilizes, it brings clarity that comfort never could. Imagine standing in your future, feeling grounded and certain. Imagine responding to challenges with calmness. Imagine pursuing goals that truly resonate with your values. That future is being prepared in this season. The discomfort is shaping discernment. The silence is shaping wisdom. The uncertainty is shaping trust. Nothing is randomly falling apart. It is rearranging. Life is clearing space for something more aligned. It is guiding you away from distractions that once delayed your growth. It is strengthening your ability to stand independently. The ending you feel is not the end of your story. It is the end of misalignment. It is the closing of chapters that have served their purpose. It is the shedding of outdated identities. You are not being abandoned. You are being redirected. You are not losing direction. You are refining it. You are not collapsing. You are evolving. When this season passes, you will look back and see how necessary it was. You will recognize that the discomfort forced you to listen inward. You will understand that the heaviness strengthened your resolve. You will appreciate that the silence clarified your purpose. The beginning of your true alignment does not arrive with noise. It arrives quietly through awareness. It unfolds gradually through patience. It strengthens steadily through endurance. And when you fully step into that alignment, you will realize that this season was not an ending at all. It was the doorway to a more authentic, grounded, and purposeful version of your life. 19. The depth you are feeling is the sign of a conscious awakening. There comes a point in life when you begin to feel everything more deeply than before. Situations that once felt ordinary now carry meaning. Conversations that once passed casually now feel layered. Silence feels heavier, but also clearer. You start noticing your own thoughts more intensely. You observe your reactions instead of immediately acting on them. You question motives, both yours and others. This depth can feel overwhelming at times. It can feel like you are becoming too sensitive, too reflective, too aware. But what if this depth is not weakness? What if it is awakening? The Buddha taught that ignorance keeps us asleep inside our own habits. We move through life reacting unconsciously, chasing comfort, avoiding discomfort, and rarely questioning why we do what we do. But when awakening begins, the unconscious patterns rise to the surface. You begin to see your fears clearly. You begin to notice attachments that once felt natural. You begin to recognize the subtle ways ego influences your decisions. That awareness is powerful, but it feels heavy at first because it removes the comfort of ignorance. Depth is not sadness. Depth is clarity forming. When you start seeing life without distortion, your emotional responses change. You no longer react instantly. You pause. That pause creates space. In that space, wisdom grows. But that space can also feel uncomfortable because it disrupts old patterns. The mind resists disruption. It prefers familiarity, even if familiarity is limiting. The heaviness you feel is not emotional collapse. It is emotional expansion. Your capacity to perceive is increasing. You are becoming more conscious of the energy around you. You sense when conversations lack authenticity. You feel when environments drain your spirit. You notice when your actions do not align with your values. This heightened awareness can feel isolating, but it is transformative. Awakening does not mean life becomes easier. It means you become more aware of how you engage with it. The Buddha emphasized that suffering is often created by attachment and aversion. When you cling to what must change, you suffer. When you resist what must be faced, you suffer. Depth teaches you to observe rather than cling. It teaches you to experience without immediate judgment. There will be moments when you feel like you are losing the simplicity of your old life. Ignorance felt lighter. You did not question as much. You did not reflect as deeply. But simplicity built on unconsciousness is fragile. It cannot sustain true growth. The depth you are feeling is strengthening your foundation. As you awaken, your identity begins to shift. You no longer define yourself solely by achievements, roles, or external validation. You begin identifying with awareness itself. You understand that thoughts are temporary, emotions are temporary, situations are temporary. That understanding creates stability, but it takes time to integrate. The depth may feel heavy because it requires responsibility. You can no longer blame external circumstances for every internal reaction. You begin recognizing your participation in your own suffering. This recognition is not guilt, it is empowerment. When you see clearly, you gain the ability to change consciously. Awakening also shifts your priorities. You may crave meaningful connections instead of surface interactions. You may prefer solitude over noise. You may seek growth over comfort. These shifts can distance you from environments that once felt normal, but alignment often requires separation. The Buddha's path was not about escaping life. It was about engaging with life consciously. Depth is teaching you to live intentionally. It is teaching you to choose your responses carefully. It is teaching you to guard your energy wisely. It is teaching you to prioritize inner peace over external approval. There may be days when the depth feels overwhelming, days when your thoughts feel intense, days when you wish you could return to simpler reactions. But remember that awareness, once gained, cannot be undone. And it should not be. The discomfort is temporary, the clarity is lasting. This awakening is reshaping your perception of success. You begin measuring success not by applause, but by stability, not by attention, but by authenticity, not by comparison, but by growth. These new measures feel unfamiliar at first because they are internal. The depth you are experiencing is building resilience. You are learning to sit with difficult emotions instead of suppressing them. You are learning to question your assumptions instead of defending them blindly. You are learning to observe your ego instead of being controlled by it. There will come a time when this depth feels natural instead of heavy, when reflection feels grounding instead of exhausting, when awareness feels empowering instead of overwhelming. That transition happens gradually. The heaviness now is the adjustment period. You are integrating a new level of consciousness. You are recalibrating your responses. You are refining your perception. Nothing feels the same because you are seeing more. Nothing feels simple because you are perceiving layers. Nothing feels light because you are carrying awareness. But awareness is strength. Awareness is freedom. Awareness is alignment. The depth you are feeling is the sign of conscious awakening. It is not here to burden you, it is here to elevate you. And when you fully embrace this depth, you will realize that it was not a curse. It was a doorway into a wiser, calmer, and more intentional version of yourself. 20. The person you are becoming is stronger than the circumstances you fear. There comes a stage in deep transformation when you begin to realize that the battle you once thought was happening outside of you was always happening within you. The fear was not truly about the situation. The anxiety was not truly about the outcome. The heaviness was not only about what was changing around you, it was about your relationship with change itself. And now, slowly but undeniably, that relationship is evolving. You are not the same person who once reacted impulsively to uncertainty. You are not the same person who once allowed fear to dictate every decision. You are not the same person who once depended entirely on external reassurance to feel stable. Even if you do not fully recognize it yet, you are stronger than before. The growth may not be loud. It may not be dramatic, but it is real. The Buddha taught that the mind, when untrained, becomes the source of suffering. It clings to expectations. It resists impermanence. It creates stories about what might happen. But when the mind becomes aware, suffering begins to loosen its grip. Awareness does not eliminate difficulty, but it changes how difficulty is experienced. The person you are becoming understands this more deeply than the person you once were. Right now, you may still feel moments of doubt. There may still be flashes of insecurity. There may still be nights when your thoughts feel heavy. But notice something important. You no longer collapse the way you used to. You no longer panic the same way. You no longer react without reflection. There is a pause now, a space. And within that space is power. That space between stimulus and response is where strength lives. It is where awareness interrupts habit. It is where growth replaces impulse. The heaviness you felt earlier in your journey was the discomfort of building that space. You were learning to sit with emotions instead of being consumed by them. You were learning to observe fear instead of obeying it. You were learning to question thoughts instead of automatically believing them. This training has been shaping you in ways you cannot yet fully measure. Every time you chose patience over reaction, you strengthened your discipline. Every time you chose reflection over blame, you strengthened your awareness. Every time you endured uncertainty without rushing into panic, you strengthened your resilience. The person you are becoming is not fearless in the absence of fear. They are fearless in the presence of fear. They feel doubt, but they move forward anyway. They feel uncertainty, but they remain grounded. They feel pressure, but they do not break. Circumstances will always change. That is the nature of existence. The Buddha emphasized impermanence not to create fear, but to create freedom. When you understand that everything is temporary, you stop clinging so tightly. You stop interpreting every challenge as permanent disaster. You begin seeing events as passing conditions rather than defining truths. The strength forming within you is rooted in this understanding. You are no longer identifying completely with your emotions. You are no longer defining yourself by temporary outcomes. You are no longer measuring your worth by fleeting approval. This shift is profound. There was a time when a single rejection might have shaken your confidence for days. There was a time when criticism might have felt like a personal attack. There was a time when uncertainty might have paralyzed your decision-making. But now, even when discomfort arises, you recover faster, you stabilize sooner, you reflect more clearly. That recovery is growth. That stabilization is strength. That clarity is maturity. The circumstances you fear ahead of you may seem intimidating. They may involve greater responsibility. They may involve higher expectations. They may involve unfamiliar environments. But the version of you being formed right now is capable of carrying more than you realize. You are becoming emotionally intelligent. You are becoming mentally disciplined. You are becoming spiritually grounded. These qualities are not developed in comfort. They are forged in tension. When iron passes through fire, it does not remain fragile. It becomes refined. The fire removes impurities and strengthens the structure. In the same way, the pressure you endured has removed illusions. It has exposed insecurities. It has forced you to confront uncomfortable truths, and in doing so, it has made you stronger. You may not feel strong every day. Strength is not the absence of vulnerability. It is the ability to continue despite vulnerability. It is the willingness to face discomfort without running from it. The person you are becoming trusts the process more than the outcome. They understand that not every step needs to be visible for progress to occur. They recognize that silence can be productive. They value clarity over speed. There is a steadiness forming within you. It is subtle but powerful. It is the ability to remain calm in the face of unpredictability. It is the capacity to hold conflicting emotions without collapsing. It is the discipline to act according to values rather than impulses. Circumstances may test you again in the future. That is inevitable. but the difference will be in how you respond. The person you are becoming will not interpret every obstacle as personal failure. They will see it as information. They will see it as opportunity. They will see it as temporary. The Buddha's teachings remind us that liberation comes not from controlling external events, but from mastering the internal response. You are mastering that response, slowly, gradually, imperfectly, but consistently. The heaviness that once felt overwhelming is now part of your foundation. It strengthened your awareness. It expanded your capacity. It deepened your perception. The person you are becoming is not defined by fear. They are shaped by resilience. They are not controlled by circumstance. They are grounded in clarity. They are not shaken by every change. They understand impermanence. One day, you will face a situation that once would have terrified you, and you will handle it calmly. You will speak with confidence. You will decide with clarity. You will remain steady. And in that moment, you will recognize how far you have come. The circumstances you fear are not greater than the strength you are building. They may appear large now, but you are expanding. Your awareness is widening. Your emotional stability is deepening. Nothing feels the same because you are not the same. Nothing feels easy because you are no longer seeking easy. You are seeking growth. You are seeking alignment. You are seeking truth. The person you are becoming is stronger than the circumstances you fear. And as that strength continues to solidify, fear will no longer control your direction. It will simply become another passing condition, observed calmly by a mind that has learned how to remain steady in the midst of change. 21. The silence you are experiencing is not emptiness, it is power gathering within you. There is a kind of silence that feels different from loneliness. It is not simply the absence of noise or conversation. It is the quiet space that appears when life removes distractions. The messages slow down. The excitement fades. The constant external stimulation weakens. You may find yourself sitting alone with your thoughts more often than before. At first, this silence can feel uncomfortable. It can feel like something is missing. It can feel like isolation. But what if this silence is not emptiness? What if it is preparation? The Buddha often withdrew into silence, not to escape the world, but to understand it more clearly. Silence is where clarity forms. Noise keeps the mind busy. Distraction keeps the ego entertained. But silence forces you to meet yourself without filters. When external stimulation decreases, internal awareness increases. You begin noticing your thoughts more clearly. You begin observing emotional patterns that were once buried beneath constant activity. This awareness feels heavy at first because it removes the comfort of distraction. You can no longer escape uncomfortable questions. You can no longer drown insecurity in noise. You must sit with yourself. And sitting with yourself requires courage. The silence you are experiencing is not a punishment. It is the space where power gathers. Think about how nature works. Before a storm releases rain, the air becomes still. Before dawn breaks, there is a deep quiet in the darkness. Before a seed breaks through soil, it grows unseen underground. Silence often precedes movement. Stillness often precedes strength. In your earlier life, you may have equated silence with rejection. If the phone did not ring, you assumed you were forgotten. If attention faded, you assumed you were losing relevance. But now you are learning something deeper. Silence is not a reflection of your worth. It is a training ground for your awareness. When you sit in silence long enough, you begin to separate yourself from your thoughts. You realize that not every thought deserves belief. You realize that fear is often a projection, not a prediction. You realize that many anxieties were built on imagined outcomes. This realization reduces the mind's control over you. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from attachment and aversion. Silence reveals both. You notice where you crave validation. You notice where you resist uncertainty. You notice where ego demands attention. These realizations are not meant to shame you. They are meant to liberate you. Silence also strengthens emotional regulation. Without constant distraction, emotions surface. Sadness may appear, doubt may arise, frustration may echo louder than before. But instead of escaping these emotions, you begin observing them. You notice that they rise and fall like waves. They are temporary. They do not define you. The more you practice sitting in silence, the more stable you become. External chaos loses some of its power because you have built inner stability. You are no longer dependent on constant noise to feel alive. You are no longer dependent on constant attention to feel valued. This stage may feel lonely because not everyone understands it. People may assume that quietness means weakness or withdrawal, but true strength does not need to announce itself loudly. It grows quietly. It forms in reflection. It solidifies in stillness. Silence is also where intention sharpens. Without distraction, you begin questioning what truly matters. You begin evaluating your priorities. You begin distinguishing between ego-driven goals and purpose-driven goals. This clarity changes your direction. The life ahead of you will require focus. It will require discernment. It will require the ability to ignore noise and concentrate on what aligns with your values. Silence is building that focus. It is strengthening your ability to think independently. It is teaching you to trust your own inner guidance. There was a time when silence might have felt unbearable. You might have rushed to fill it with conversation, entertainment, or social validation. But now you are learning to embrace it. You are learning that stillness is not stagnation. It is consolidation. Consolidation means gathering strength before movement. It means integrating lessons before action. It means reflecting before speaking. This integration is crucial. Without it, growth remains shallow. The Buddha emphasized awareness as the foundation of liberation. Silence amplifies awareness. When external noise fades, internal insight grows louder. You begin recognizing subtle patterns in your thinking. You begin noticing how certain triggers operate. You begin understanding your own emotional landscape more deeply. This understanding builds confidence, not loud confidence based on praise, but quiet confidence based on self-knowledge. You trust yourself more because you understand yourself more. The silence may feel heavy now, but one day it will feel powerful. You will realize that this was the phase where you built mental clarity. This was the phase where you detached from unnecessary validation. This was the phase where you strengthened your inner voice. There will come a time when opportunities return, conversations increase, movement resumes. But you will enter that movement differently. You will not be as easily influenced by external chaos. You will not be as desperate for attention. You will not be as reactive to criticism. Because silence has trained you. It has taught you patience. It has taught you observation. It has taught you independence. It has taught you that your worth does not fluctuate with noise. The silence you are experiencing is not emptiness. It is space. Space for growth. Space for integration. Space for awareness. It is the gathering of power before expression. It is the strengthening of roots before visible expansion. It is the refinement of identity before new opportunity. You are not being forgotten in this silence. You are being formed. You are not being isolated. You are being prepared. You are not being reduced. You are being refined. And when this silent season completes its work, you will step forward with a steadiness that noise could never have built. The silence is not the end of movement. It is the beginning of intentional movement. It is not absence. It is alignment forming quietly within you. And when you finally recognize that, the heaviness of silence will transform into the strength of stillness. 22. The discomfort you are feeling is the collapse of an illusion you once needed. There is a moment in deep growth when you begin to realize that what feels painful is not always loss, but revelation. The discomfort you are carrying right now may not be coming from something new being added to your life, but from something old being exposed. An illusion is collapsing. A belief you once relied on is weakening. A story you once told yourself about who you are and how life works is beginning to unravel, and that unraveling feels heavy. The Buddha taught that much of human suffering comes from ignorance, not in the sense of stupidity, but in the sense of unconsciousness. We move through life believing certain narratives without questioning them. We believe that happiness depends on approval. We believe that security depends on control. We believe that identity depends on roles and achievements. These beliefs feel solid because they are familiar. But when awareness grows, those illusions begin to crack. Cracks in illusion do not feel liberating at first. They feel destabilizing. If you have built your sense of worth around being needed by others, what happens when you begin to detach? If you have built your confidence around constant productivity, what happens when life slows you down? If you have built your identity around pleasing everyone, what happens when you begin setting boundaries? The old structure trembles, the mind panics, the ego resists. This resistance is what feels like discomfort. You are not grieving a real loss. You are grieving the collapse of a version of reality that once felt safe. Illusions often protect us in earlier stages of life. They give us a sense of certainty. They create structure. But illusions cannot sustain growth. As your awareness deepens, the illusions that once supported you become limitations. Perhaps you once believed that you had to be perfect to be loved. That belief may have driven you to work harder, speak carefully, and avoid mistakes at all costs. But now you are beginning to see that perfection is an impossible standard. That realization feels both freeing and frightening. If you are not perfect, who are you? If you are not constantly proving yourself, what defines you? The discomfort you feel is the ego losing its old definitions. The Buddha explained that attachment to identity creates suffering. When you cling to a fixed image of who you must be, you resist the fluid nature of existence. Growth demands flexibility. It demands that you release rigid self-concepts. This release does not feel comfortable. It feels like stepping into unfamiliar territory without a clear map. You may notice that certain desires no longer hold the same intensity. Achievements that once felt urgent now feel optional. External praise that once felt essential now feels temporary. This shift can feel confusing. You might question whether you are losing ambition or becoming indifferent, but in reality, you are redefining value. When illusion collapses, clarity begins to form. But clarity is quieter than illusion. Illusion is dramatic. It promises security, approval, and permanence. Clarity is simple. It accepts impermanence. It understands that control is limited. It recognizes that peace cannot be forced from outside circumstances. The heaviness you feel is the weight of this realization settling into your bones. There may be moments when you wish you could return to the old belief system. It felt easier not to question everything. It felt simpler to chase external validation. It felt lighter to blame circumstances rather than examine your own patterns. But once illusion begins to dissolve, it cannot be rebuilt in the same way. Awareness changes perception permanently. You are not losing your identity. You are uncovering a deeper one. Beneath the roles, beneath the expectations, beneath the habits, there is awareness. That awareness does not depend on performance. It does not fluctuate with approval. It does not collapse under criticism. It simply observes. The Buddha's path to awakening involved seeing through illusion. He recognized that attachment to impermanent conditions creates suffering. He did not eliminate emotion, he understood it. He did not avoid discomfort, he examined it. You are walking a similar path now, whether you intended to or not. Life is showing you where you once operated unconsciously. It is revealing the illusions you once needed. That revelation feels like loss because it requires letting go. Letting go is not passive, it is active. It requires discipline, it requires trust, it requires patience. The mind will try to rebuild old narratives because familiarity feels safe. But awareness interrupts that cycle. The collapse of illusion is also the birth of authenticity. When you no longer rely on external definitions, you begin defining yourself from within. You begin asking what truly matters. You begin aligning choices with values rather than expectations. This alignment may distance you from certain environments, it may shift relationships, it may alter goals, but alignment is necessary for sustainable growth. The discomfort you feel is not a punishment, it is a recalibration. It is the sensation of shedding what no longer fits. It is the friction between who you were and who you are becoming. One day, you will look back and realize that the illusion was limiting you. You will see how much of your stress came from trying to maintain a version of yourself that was never fully authentic. You will appreciate the collapse because it freed you. The illusion you once needed served its purpose. It protected you in earlier stages. It gave you direction. But growth requires evolution. The structure must expand. You are not falling apart. You are breaking through illusion. The discomfort is not proof that something is wrong. It is proof that something false is dissolving. And when the dust settles, what remains will be clarity. Clarity does not shout, it whispers. It does not demand validation. It rests in awareness. It does not chase permanence. It accepts impermanence. The illusion is collapsing, but you are not. You are emerging. Stronger, clearer, more aligned. And once the illusion is gone, you will no longer need it. Because you will have discovered something deeper than illusion ever offered. You will have discovered truth. 23. The path you are on feels lonely because it is meant to strengthen your inner authority. There comes a phase in deep personal growth where you begin to feel a quiet separation from the familiar world around you. It is not always dramatic. There may be no loud argument, no visible conflict, no obvious break. Yet internally, you feel different. Conversations that once energized you now feel draining. Opinions that once influenced you now feel less important. The need to constantly explain yourself begins to fade, and in its place there is silence. Not empty silence, but reflective silence. This phase can feel lonely, but that loneliness is not punishment, it is construction. The Buddha taught that attachment to external validation creates suffering because it places your sense of self in unstable hands. When your identity depends on praise, agreement, or acceptance, you are constantly adjusting yourself to maintain approval. That adjustment can feel normal for years. You may not even realize how much of your behavior is shaped by the need to belong. But as awareness grows, that unconscious dependence begins to weaken, and when it weakens, you feel distance. That distance can feel uncomfortable. You may wonder if you are becoming too detached, too serious, or too different. You may question whether you are isolating yourself unnecessarily. But what is truly happening is deeper than surface behavior. Your inner authority is forming. Inner authority means you begin trusting your own perception. You begin validating your own feelings without immediately seeking confirmation. You begin making decisions aligned with your values rather than popular opinion. This shift requires solitude because noise interrupts self-trust. When you constantly seek external guidance, You never strengthen your internal compass. The loneliness you feel is the training ground of independence. It is teaching you how to stand without leaning. It is teaching you how to listen inward before looking outward. It is teaching you that your worth does not fluctuate with attention. There may have been a time when you felt uncomfortable being alone with your thoughts. Silence may have felt heavy because it amplified insecurity. But now, that silence is becoming a mirror. It reflects your patterns. It reveals your motivations. It shows you where ego still seeks control. This reflection is not easy. It requires honesty. But honesty is the foundation of inner authority. The Buddha emphasized mindfulness as a practice of observation without judgment. When you observe your thoughts instead of reacting to them, you develop clarity. When you sit with discomfort instead of escaping it, you build resilience. That resilience is strengthening your inner voice. You may notice that your tolerance for superficial interaction has decreased. You crave depth. You seek meaning. You desire authenticity. This shift may distance you from environments that thrive on distraction. But depth is not isolation. It is alignment. Inner authority also requires releasing the need to be understood by everyone. Not everyone will resonate with your growth. Not everyone will agree with your boundaries. Not everyone will support your transformation. That reality can feel lonely. But maturity means accepting that approval is not universal. The heaviness you feel is the weight of self-reliance forming. You are learning to validate yourself. You are learning to choose integrity over popularity. You are learning to prioritize peace over performance. In earlier stages of life, you may have relied heavily on external feedback to shape your identity. Praise may have lifted you. Criticism may have crushed you. But now you are building stability that does not swing so dramatically. You still feel emotions, but they no longer define your worth. The path feels lonely because growth is deeply personal. It cannot be outsourced. No one else can sit with your thoughts for you. No one else can confront your fears for you. No one else can integrate your awareness for you. That work is internal. But loneliness during growth is temporary. As your inner authority strengthens, you will attract relationships that align with your depth. You will engage in conversations that resonate with your clarity. You will step into environments that respect your boundaries. Right now, however, the focus is internal. You are strengthening the foundation. Think of a tree growing deep roots underground before expanding upward. From the outside, it may look still, but beneath the surface, roots are anchoring into the soil. Those roots allow the tree to withstand storms later. Your solitude is rooting you. The Buddha's journey included long periods of reflection and meditation. He did not avoid solitude. He used it to understand the mind. In understanding the mind, he gained freedom from its unconscious patterns. You are experiencing a similar process. You are observing where fear once dictated your choices. You are recognizing where attachment once limited your growth. You are examining where insecurity once shaped your voice. This examination is strengthening your authority. Authority not over others, but over yourself. You are becoming less reactive and more deliberate. You are becoming less dependent and more grounded. You are becoming less influenced by noise and more guided by clarity. The path feels lonely because you are stepping into independence. Independence does not mean isolation from others. It means stability within yourself. There will be moments when you question whether this path is worth it. But consider the alternative, remaining dependent on constant approval, remaining reactive to every opinion, remaining uncertain about your own voice. That version of life may feel socially comfortable, but it lacks depth. Inner authority creates peace. When you trust your judgment, you feel less anxiety about decisions. When you validate your own emotions, you feel less desperate for reassurance. When you align your actions with your values, You feel less internal conflict. This peace is worth the temporary loneliness. As your inner authority strengthens, the heaviness will transform into steadiness. You will no longer interpret solitude as rejection. You will see it as opportunity. You will no longer fear silence. You will welcome it. The path you are on feels lonely because it is refining you. It is strengthening your ability to stand alone without feeling empty. It is teaching you to listen to your inner wisdom rather than external noise. You are not drifting away from connection. You are preparing for healthier connection. You are not withdrawing from life. You are clarifying your relationship with it. One day, you will look back at this phase and recognize it as the moment you learned to trust yourself fully. You will see that the loneliness was not abandonment. It was empowerment forming quietly within you. The path is not isolating you, it is aligning you. And when alignment stabilizes, the loneliness will give way to confidence rooted in clarity. The heaviness will give way to steadiness. The uncertainty will give way to trust. And the person you become will no longer seek constant validation because they will have discovered something stronger, inner authority grounded in awareness. 24. The version of you that is dying is the one that could not carry your future. There is a phase in deep transformation that feels almost like grief. Not grief for a person, not grief for a place, but grief for a version of yourself. You begin to notice that you no longer think the way you used to. You no longer react with the same intensity. You no longer chase the same things. You no longer tolerate what you once tolerated. And as these shifts become clearer, something inside you feels like it is ending. It can feel frightening. It can feel destabilizing. It can even feel like you are losing your identity. But what if you are not losing yourself? What if you are outgrowing yourself? The Buddha taught that clinging to identity is one of the deepest roots of suffering. We construct an image of who we believe we are, and we defend it fiercely. We say, "This is just my personality." We say, "This is how I've always been." We become attached not only to our strengths, but also to our weaknesses. We become comfortable even with patterns that hurt us because they feel familiar. But growth does not respect familiarity. Growth asks for expansion, and expansion requires letting go. The heaviness you are feeling is not random. It is the weight of shedding. The old version of you was built for a certain stage of life. It learned how to survive specific circumstances. It developed coping mechanisms that made sense at the time. It adapted to environments that demanded certain behaviors. But survival strategies are not always suitable for expansion. What once protected you may now be limiting you. Perhaps you once relied on pleasing others to feel secure. That strategy may have helped you avoid conflict or gain approval. But now, as your awareness deepens, you begin to see the cost. You begin to see how much of your energy was spent managing perceptions. You begin to see how often you silenced your own voice to maintain peace. That realization feels uncomfortable because it challenges your past decisions, but it also opens the door to authenticity. The version of you that is fading may have been reactive. It may have been easily triggered by criticism. It may have been driven by comparison. It may have sought validation as proof of worth. Letting go of that version feels like losing something familiar. But what you are actually losing is limitation. When a snake sheds its skin, the old skin does not disappear instantly. It peels away gradually. During that process, the snake may feel vulnerable. The new skin beneath is sensitive. Growth often feels like that. As the old identity loosens, the new identity is still forming. You are in between versions of yourself. That in-between space feels uncertain. The Buddha's path to awakening involved seeing through the illusion of a fixed self. He understood that identity is fluid. It shifts with awareness. It evolves with insight. When you cling to a rigid image of yourself, you resist evolution. But when you accept impermanence, you allow transformation. Right now, you may feel as though parts of you are dissolving. Habits that once felt automatic now feel questionable. Reactions that once felt justified now feel excessive. Goals that once felt urgent now feel misaligned. This dissolution can feel like confusion, but confusion often precedes clarity. The version of you that could not carry your future is fading because your future requires something stronger. It requires emotional regulation instead of impulsivity. It requires discernment instead of people-pleasing. It requires resilience instead of avoidance. It requires inner validation instead of external dependence. The heaviness you feel is the friction between who you were and who you are becoming. It is the tension of expansion. It is the discomfort of maturity. There will be moments when you miss the simplicity of your old self. Ignorance felt lighter. Reacting without reflection felt easier. Seeking approval felt familiar. But simplicity built on unconscious patterns cannot sustain a higher level of awareness. You cannot unknow what you now see. You are not becoming cold. You are becoming clear. You are not becoming distant. You are becoming intentional. You are not losing emotion. You are learning to manage it. The old version of you may have thrived on chaos. It may have felt alive in drama. It may have mistaken intensity for connection. But the new version of you values stability. It values depth over noise. It values peace over performance. The Buddha emphasized that suffering decreases when attachment decreases. As you release attachment to your old identity, you feel lighter, but the release process feels heavy before it feels freeing. It feels like loss before it feels liberation. This is the paradox of growth. To become more, you must let go of something. To rise, you must release weight. To evolve, you must allow an old version to end. The version of you that is dying is not a failure. It was necessary. It carried you through earlier chapters. It taught you lessons. It helped you survive. But it cannot carry the responsibilities and opportunities ahead. Imagine stepping into a future that demands calm under pressure. The old reactive version of you would struggle. Imagine building relationships rooted in authenticity. The old people-pleasing version of you would compromise too much. Imagine pursuing goals aligned with your true values. The old comparison-driven version of you would chase what impresses rather than what fulfills. The future you is forming now. It is steadier, it is clearer, it is less dependent on applause, it is more aligned with truth. There will be days when the transition feels exhausting, days when you question whether the transformation is worth it. But consider what remains if you resist it. Stagnation, repetition, limitation. You are not being stripped of identity, you are refining it. The Buddha taught that awareness is liberation. Awareness exposes patterns. Exposure creates choice. Choice creates change. Change creates growth. Right now, you are in the exposure phase. You see what no longer aligns. You feel what no longer fits. That awareness is uncomfortable, but it is powerful. The version of you that is fading is not dying in vain. It is making space, space for maturity, space for clarity, space for strength. And when this shedding completes its work, you will stand differently. You will speak differently. You will decide differently. You will not recognize yourself entirely, and that will be a sign of progress. Because the version of you that once felt permanent was only temporary. The real you is not fixed, it is evolving. The heaviness you feel is the cost of evolution. But evolution always leads forward. And the version of you that emerges will not regret the shedding. It will understand that the old self could not carry the life ahead, so it had to fall away. Not as a loss, but as a necessary ending that makes room for a greater beginning. 25. The pressure you feel is expanding your capacity to hold a greater life. There is a certain kind of pressure that does not come from one single problem, but from life itself stretching you. It feels like everything is asking more from you at the same time: more patience, more clarity, more emotional control, more responsibility. Situations that once felt manageable now feel heavier. Decisions carry more weight. Conversations demand more awareness. And in the middle of it all, you may quietly wonder, why does everything feel so intense right now? The truth is not that life is against you. The truth is that your capacity is being expanded. And expansion always feels like pressure before it feels like strength. The Buddha taught that growth begins with awareness, but awareness increases sensitivity. When you become more conscious, you notice more, you feel more, you understand more. That deeper perception can feel overwhelming at first because you are no longer operating on autopilot. You are engaging with life deliberately. That engagement requires energy. Imagine pouring water into a small container. It overflows easily, but if you gradually increase the size of the container, it can hold more without spilling. Right now, life is increasing the size of your container. It is strengthening your emotional walls. It is deepening your mental endurance. It is widening your perspective. But while the container is expanding, the stretching feels uncomfortable. You may feel pressure because you are being trusted with more responsibility, more understanding, more independence. The old version of you might have collapsed under this weight. It might have reacted impulsively or withdrawn completely. But now, even though you feel the pressure, you are still standing. That is growth. The Buddha often spoke about the middle path balance between extremes. Pressure teaches balance. It teaches you not to overreact. It teaches you not to suppress emotion. It teaches you to remain steady between chaos and control. You may notice that you are thinking more deeply about your choices. You hesitate before speaking. You consider consequences more carefully. This is not anxiety, it is maturity forming. Your mind is learning to process complexity rather than escape it. The pressure is also revealing your limits. It shows you where you still become impatient. It shows you where fear still influences your decisions. It shows you where attachment still creates stress. This revelation is not failure. It is feedback. And feedback allows refinement. When muscles are trained, they are pushed beyond comfort. Tiny tears occur in the fibers. Those tears heal stronger than before. Emotional and mental strength develop the same way. The pressure you feel is creating micro-fractures in outdated patterns. Those fractures heal into resilience. There may be moments when you wish for simplicity, when you long for a time when decisions felt lighter, but simplicity without awareness is fragile. It cannot support a greater life. The future you are stepping toward requires stability. It requires discipline. It requires emotional intelligence. These qualities are not developed through ease, they are developed through challenge. The Buddha emphasized impermanence. Everything changes. But what changes most powerfully is the mind that learns from experience. Each time you endure pressure without breaking, your threshold increases. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. What once felt overwhelming becomes instructional. You are not being crushed, you are being conditioned. Pressure also strengthens discernment. You begin to see where your energy is wasted. You begin to recognize which conflicts are unnecessary. You begin to understand which expectations are unrealistic. This clarity reduces future stress because you stop carrying what is not yours. The life ahead of you may include greater influence, deeper relationships, or higher responsibility. Without expanded capacity, those blessings would feel overwhelming. So life prepares you first. Preparation does not always feel pleasant. It feels demanding. It feels intense. But it is purposeful. You may feel like you are constantly being tested, but tests are not punishments. They are measurements of readiness. Each challenge reveals how much stronger you have become. Think about how far you have already come. Situations that once shattered your confidence now only disturb you temporarily. Criticism that once lingered for days now fades more quickly. Uncertainty that once paralyzed you now invites reflection. That is expanded capacity. The pressure you feel is also teaching you detachment. When everything feels intense, you are forced to prioritize. You cannot hold on to every expectation. You cannot respond to every distraction. You must choose what truly matters. That choice simplifies your life in the long run. The Buddha taught that clinging creates suffering. Pressure exposes where you are still clinging. When you release that grip, the weight lightens. There will come a day when this season feels lighter, not because life becomes effortless, but because you have grown into it. Your emotional muscles will be stronger, your mental endurance will be deeper, your awareness will be steadier. You will look back and realize that what once felt unbearable was shaping you. The pressure was not random, it was intentional. It was expanding your patience. It was expanding your discipline. It was expanding your resilience. It was expanding your capacity to hold success without arrogance and hold challenge without collapse. Nothing feels the same because you are not meant to remain the same. Nothing feels light because you are carrying more awareness. Nothing feels simple because you are being prepared for something greater. The person you are becoming will not fear pressure. They will understand it. They will welcome it as refinement rather than resistance. Right now, you are in the expansion phase. It feels tight. It feels demanding. It feels heavy. But when expansion completes its work, what remains is strength. Strength that does not panic. Strength that does not crumble. Strength that does not depend on constant reassurance. The pressure you feel is not evidence that you are failing. It is evidence that your life is growing larger than your old capacity. And that capacity is expanding every day, even when you do not see it. You are being shaped into someone who can carry more without losing balance. Someone who can lead without ego. Someone who can endure without bitterness. Someone who can thrive without fear. The pressure is not your enemy. It is the force that is making you capable of the life that is waiting for you. And when you step fully into that life, you will realize that this season was not a burden. It was preparation. Preparation for a version of yourself that can hold more, handle more, and become more than you ever believed possible. If there is one truth that runs through every heavy season, every silent chapter, every moment of pressure and confusion, it is this: nothing feels the same because you are not the same. You are not breaking down, you are shedding illusions. You are not being punished, you are being prepared. You are not losing control, you are gaining awareness. The Buddha taught that suffering begins when we resist change, and freedom begins when we understand it. Life is not attacking you, it is evolving you. Every uncomfortable shift, every silent space, every internal conflict has been expanding your awareness. And awareness changes everything. You have outgrown the old version of yourself. The habits, the fears, the attachments, the identities that once felt permanent were only temporary structures. They helped you survive earlier chapters, but they could not carry the life that is calling you forward, so they had to dissolve. That dissolution felt heavy. That silence felt lonely. That pressure felt overwhelming. But now you can see it clearly. Each stage was strengthening you. The loneliness was building inner authority. The pressure was expanding your capacity. The silence was sharpening your awareness. The discomfort was collapsing illusion. Nothing feels the same because your perception has deepened. You see through things that once controlled you. You feel beyond surface distractions. You question what once felt unquestionable. That is awakening. Growth is not always loud. It does not always look like external success. Sometimes it looks like restraint. Sometimes it looks like reflection. Sometimes it looks like walking away quietly. Sometimes it looks like choosing peace instead of proving a point. The person you are becoming is calmer, more grounded, more aware, less reactive, less dependent on noise, less controlled by fear. This transformation may have felt chaotic in the middle, but it was always guiding you somewhere higher. The Buddha's path reminds us that life is impermanent, but awareness can remain steady. As long as you continue observing rather than reacting, learning rather than resisting, and trusting rather than panicking, you are moving in the right direction. So if everything feels heavy, understand that heaviness often precedes elevation. If everything feels different, understand that difference often precedes clarity. If everything feels uncertain, understand that uncertainty often precedes alignment. You are not behind. You are not lost. You are not failing. You are becoming. And one day, when you stand firmly in your next chapter, calmer under pressure, clearer in your decisions, stronger in your boundaries, and steadier in your peace, you will look back at this season and realize something powerful. Life was never breaking you. It was building you. Nothing feels the same because you are rising to a new level. And this time, you are not just surviving life. You are consciously living it.